become the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me on this, as Mike points out, rather grim and dreary Monday morning. You never know, things might improve, I don't know, sometime in March or April. Anyway, well done, everybody. Happy Monday morning to you. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, whether you're on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, and your connected device, however you are listening or watching, it is lovely to have your company, and I hope we'll keep you informed and entertained over the next 3 hours. We've got an awful lot coming up. We're going to be talking about this Albanian criminal who was allowed to stay in Britain after an immigration tribunal ruled that it would be, I quote, unduly harsh for his 10-year-old son to be forced to move to Albania. By the way, he doesn't speak English, the 10-year-old who's been brought up in Britain. Because he wouldn't like foreign chicken nuggets. Apparently they taste different. This wasn't the only reason given. The fact that this was even mentioned leads to some question marks, but this comes as raids of illegal migrant workers in car washes, nail bars, restaurants has seen nearly 4,000 arrests in just 7 months, which sounds fabulous, but it's about 18 a day across the whole country. I mean, well done, guys, well done. Also, we're going to be talking about those WhatsApp messages I was just discussing with Mike between Labour MPs, Labour councillors, and the usual crew of waggy finger people calling for everyone else to go and calling other people the nasty party and far right and bigots and all of that. Oh, it turns out when they don't think anyone else is watching or listening, they're saying some pretty rotten things. Labour MP Oliver Ryan, just a little baby-faced creature, has been named as the second Labour MP in a WhatsApp group in which racist, sexist, homophobic and blatantly anti-Semitic messages were exchanged. This, of course, comes after Keir Starmer sacked Health Minister Andrew Gwynn for posting some very unpleasant remarks, including saying he hoped a pensioner who hadn't voted Labour would die before the next election. I mean, luckily enough, Andrew Gwynn, given Labour's policies and the cut in the winter fuel payments for 10 million pensioners. You may well have helped that to happen. So well done. I hope you're very proud. I want to talk about that because you know me, I'm big on free speech. So I really want to know your thoughts on that, as well as all the other stories. We're also going to talk about Health Secretary Wes Streeting. He says he's going to declare war on NHS wokery and nonsense. The NHS chairman has branded parts of the service unsafe. I wonder if these things are linked. Plus, we're going to be talking about the thousands of farmers who are going to descend on Westminster this afternoon in protest against Rachel Reeves' inheritance tax rate. That is all coming up. So much more besides, and a lot more besides, and all of it, I'm delighted to say, will be alongside the commentator Sam Armstrong. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
You're looking very cheery today.
Well,
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
We've got to make up for the miserable weather outside.
It's true, isn't it? I always find that with the weather. You find yourself you're either sort of beaten down by it, like, no, I will not give in to it. We're going to go through, first of all, I want to talk about this the illegal foreign worker crackdown, this Albanian criminals deportation, and all of these stories combined. And I do want to get your thoughts on this, but I mean, generally on the crackdown, but also specifically on this Albanian criminal allowed to stay in Britain after an immigration tribunal ruled that, among other things, it would be unduly harsh to deport him because his son will not eat foreign chicken nuggets. I mean, genuinely, I despair. I want to know your reaction. I have a funny feeling some of the words might be rude, so do help me out by not putting them in your actual messages or in the phone call. That would be helpful. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can send us a message on X. That's a lot of you already have done. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Sam, before we get into our views on this, let me just give you the details in case you haven't seen this. It's in front of the Telegraph today. This is a guy called Klevis Disha. He's an Albanian. I mean, he's 39 years old. He came to the UK legally in 2001. I know, I'm as surprised as you are. 15-year-old unaccompanied child. He used a false name. He also falsely claimed he was born in the former Yugoslavia. He wasn't. He was Albanian. His asylum claim was rejected, but he managed somehow to get UK citizenship in 2007 after being granted exceptional leave to remain and then indefinite leave to remain. Big news last week, remember, with Kemi Badenoch on this. So how is someone who lied about how they came here and who they were and where they were from, whose asylum was not granted, was able to get sodding citizenship of this country? I mean, I find that mind-blowing. But here we go, it carries on. He met another Albanian as partner, so his girlfriend, who'd already had UK citizenship. They've got 2 daughters and a son. In 2017, he was jailed for 2 years after being caught with £250,000 in cash, which were the proceeds of crime. 250 grand. Anyone else seen 250 grand in cash? Well, this Albanian guy who got British citizenship has. He was then ordered by the then Home Secretary, Dame Priti Patel, to be deported to Albania. Great. And stripped of his UK citizenship because it had been acquired through deception. He appealed. And at a lower-tier immigration tribunal, the judge ruled it would be unduly harsh for his 10-year-old son to remain in the UK and be separated from his father, or, again, that would be his father's problem, not mine, or be forced to go with him to Albania. The case centred on the son's additional needs, although there was no evidence from a trained psychologist, nothing at all. There was evidence from a neighbour and a trainee psychologist. No diagnosis of special educational needs, but basically he had He had problems with socks. He had problems with types of food he would eat, including chicken nuggets, and that was like the only sole example given. And this guy was allowed to stay in the country. I mean, I'd like to think this is unbelievable, but I have a funny feeling this is what happens every day, Sam. Your thoughts?
Yeah, each and every time we hear about what goes on in these immigration tribunals, people are disgusted. Yeah. And that's because people like this man, this criminal, this crook that broke into our country, that cheated on our systems, that what did he do in response to all of that generosity? He decided to engage himself in a criminal enterprise. And look, you can only imagine if he's been caught with 250 grand from proceeds of crime. May just not have been his first time around, and that was the first time he got caught. You should say that, Sam. Who then goes up before yet another one of our judges, and frankly, 2 years seems too low for that level of money. Goes up before another judge, another absolute nonsense story. I'd like to call it far worse than that, but we can't because it's the radio, and comes up with this baloney and is allowed to stay again. Is it any wonder that migrants right across Europe want to make their way to one country, and one country in particular, and that's our own. Why?
Ta-da!
Because we are the softest of soft
But this
touches.
is it. But this is the thing. I mean, so he was. He didn't pass his asylum claim. They worked out that he wasn't actually from where he said he was, and he was from. Either way, even if you're from Yugoslavia. I mean, former Yugoslavia, includes Croatia. Lovely holiday there last summer. Not sure it's a problem coming from there. But this is the thing. Why wasn't he instantly deported? It is utterly mind-blowing this happens. But again and again, we hear this from these tribunals. I mean, what a nonsense story. And again, this idea, well, the little boy can't be separated from his dad. Well, we separate kids from their dads when we send them to prison all the time. I don't see what the difference is. And also, those are your choices, mate. If you want to come to this country illegally and then do that, you don't have a right to be here anymore. Bye-bye. And your kid can either stay here. I'd rather your kid left with you. Also, the fact that your kid, you've lived here, your kid is 10 years old, doesn't speak a word of English. Maybe that might be a problem in the future as well. Maybe you have not quite assimilated and integrated even into your own criminal gang network as well as you should have.
Let me be very clear. If you've been in this country for long enough to have a 10-year-old kid that can't speak English, that you've been sent to prison for 2 years for committing crime, and the only thing that this kid eats is chicken bloomin' nuggets, you are not a parent worthy of having a child.
Bye-bye. But here's
the best thing to happen to that child is to be separated from you. You whinge and whine about the child being separated. It is basically child abuse to bring up a child in this country without letting them speak the
English,
language
absolutely.
and eating anything other than chicken
But also, by the way, is
nuggets.
that kid at school? Well, how are teachers coping with that? The impact, it's this thing, the impact on everyone else. We paid for his incarceration. Literally, the day he finishes in jail, or I'd rather he was sent to an Albanian jail, I imagine they're not quite as cushy as our ones. The day he finished, literally, that day, thank you very much, pack your things up, you're on the plane. Bye-bye, nothing to discuss, you're gone. There's no appeal, no, you've committed a crime, you're not British, bye. I don't understand there's nothing complicated about this. And if people are afraid of going home, well, if you're that afraid, maybe don't commit crimes here because you want to stay. It's nothing complicated. Now, here's the thing. We know a lot of people are committing crimes here who are here. We know that because the reason they come here is they want to work. A lot of these people who are getting on those boats at the Channel in Calais, they're not fleeing for their lives. They're coming for work. They're being told, well, you can work. You can work in the UK, which you can because you don't have to show your ID and all that. And so they turn up, they pay 3 or 4 grand to get the boat. They turn up and then they have to pay back the boat money, from the earnings. But they're basically on very low wages. They can't ask for minimum wage. They can't, if something goes wrong, they can't ask for, they can't take their employer to court or anything. So a lot of very dodgy employers. You've got the nail bars, you've got the car washes, lots of restaurants, an awful lot of delivery drivers, by the way. When you're getting your delivery, an awful lot of those people are not here legally. They're working illegally. But the government thinks that we're going to be all wowed by the fact there's been this big blitz on all these illegal workers. And in the last month, a record 600 were arrested. I bet you most of those will still be in the country in a year's time, but a record 600 were arrested. Now, that works out as 19 a day. Now, it's the highest since figures started being collected in 2019. They also said there'd been 4,000 arrests in the last 7 months. Again, that was 18 a day. The whole country. The Tories were worse at this. The Tories literally, by the end of their term in office, had stopped even bothering with this. That's why it's exploded so much. But is this going to convince an awful lot of Labour voters who are now going, oh, reform, they look like an interesting option? Is that going to remotely stop them? Right,
well, let's just get some things straight, just for starters. Firstly, the vast majority of that 600 people are going nowhere. This fellow here, he was ordered to be deported, arrested, ordered to be deported in 2017. It is now, 7 years later, and the bloke is still here. So that's just that, right? So, but let's assume for a minute that all 600 of these people were on a plane, that this massive blitz, this first ever time, this fantastic thing, we got 600 people out of the country. Well, how many people came into the country last month illegally? 1,092. Yeah. So the best ever months we've done, never seen anything like it before. A net 492, 500 people.
And that's, by the way, January, when it's very low level of arrivals compared to July and August.
It isn't working. It's not even coming close to working. What's more, politicians know it's not working. They know this is the system working as it's intended to do. Our politicians are deliberately enabling tens of thousands of people per annum to break into our country, to permanently alter the makeup of our society, because they are not prepared to break the eggs, to do what's necessary to change things for the better. Why? Because they would rather be popular on international circuits where they're all planning to earn money when they go. They'd rather be popular at their dinner parties in North London with the lawyers that bring these claims. And because they do not have the interests of the people who vote to send them to Westminster.
But what's so funny,
at their
even
heart.
if you argued it on a sort of a Labour bleeding heart, wringing hands basis, these people are being able to be exploited, and they undercut British workers, low-paid workers, because, well, I can hire an Albanian who'll work for £3 an hour. Why would I hire you on minimum wage? An Albanian at £3 an hour who can't report me if I make him work extra time. But this is the thing. But again, I know they are fining some employers and things, but it's really, really simple. I know that there are fines of up to 50, 60 grand. You could get 2 years behind bars, but that rarely happens. You need to start seriously imprisoning some people. It's very simple. Hello, you've come for a job. Can I see your papers, please? If you, as an employer, and I think the rules of landlords as well, renting somewhere, if you do not ask for that information and you do not look at that information, it is reasonably to be believed that that person is legally in this country. You're committing a serious criminal offence, aiding and abetting a massive wave of illegal immigration and crime, and you should need to be severely punished for it. I don't believe for a moment any of it will actually make a difference. Do you think people will be convinced? Because as I said, I think there's 40 Labour MPs in the Red Wall who are very worried that reform is coming up on their heel. A lot of people who might have voted Tory for the first time in 2019, gone back to Labour, are now going, well, that didn't work out. Looking at reform looking either above or neck and neck with Labour in the polls. Big stories in the papers yesterday about a possible mega party reform with the Tories. This was immediately absolutely wiped away by Reform in a statement, because the suggested leader was Boris Johnson, hilariously. And I have to say, I was sitting in the car with my husband. We'd been off in the north for the weekend, and we would sit there going, over my dead body would I ever vote for Boris Johnson again, Mr. Lockdown imposer and lockdown breaker, and the Boris wave of migrants. I mean, he's proven himself to be an absolute failure. But Tories won't rule it out. But Reform UK have. Does that show just how scared the Tories are? Well,
look, there is no doubt that the Tory party's position in the polling is desperately bad at the moment. It is the worst that I can ever remember it, and we see into that rumours and reports that the financial situation for the party is even worse, and that's really troubling for them, because they simply won't be able to buy themselves out of it in the way that they would ordinarily do.
And there's that element, isn't there, where Reform is sort of more of a start-up, whereas the Tories have got the sort of, you've just got the people, you've got the staff, you've got the offices, you've got, and that sort of, that infrastructure is what helps win election.
Yeah, and I think this is probably being recognised. The situation is being recognised in the senior leadership of the Conservative Party. Kemi Badenoch has been a lot more active over the last week than perhaps she has been for a while. A number of media interviews from a... I
think she needs to be a lot more active.
Famously media-shy figure. But look, Reform right now are setting the weather for British politics.
Yep.
And these kind of stories are going to go from the occasional noises off to an irresistible, unstoppable jungle drums the closer and closer we get to the election. And there is a simple reason why, which is, yes, the Labour Party is doing parlously bad. It has never been in government in performing quite such a poor state before. However, given the way that our electoral system works, the fact that the Conservative Party is now splitting, probably you'd have to say, the Reform votes, unless there is some kind of arrangement between the two of them, the Labour Party at present rate would walk back into Downing Street.
Absolutely. That is the reality, isn't it? What do you make also, we touched at the beginning, these Labour MPs and councillors involved in this WhatsApp group. We've already seen Andrew Gwynn, who was a health minister, being sacked as a health minister, and investigations whether he loses the whip. Another young Labour MP, I mean, he's only 29-year-old, Oliver Ryan, who's another leading member of the group. He's posted more than 2,000 messages. I mean, he wasn't one of those people who go, someone put me in a WhatsApp group and I wasn't aware of it. I spent my entire time during lockdown refusing to be in people's groups. Literally, get me out of that group. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't know what some lunatic is going to post. Trigger Me Timbers is the private chat. Now, you and I are both big free speechers, OK? Now, here's my thing. I think people should be allowed to make awful jokes, terrible jokes about every single topic. I don't think anything is out of bounds. I also think people should be allowed private conversations, whether private thoughts, private conversations with, as long as you're not booming it, loud hailer, of course, you should be allowed to say anything you want in a private conversation. However, if you are a Labour MP, or particularly a Labour minister, and you are purporting to be someone who absolutely cares about, for instance, say, women, but you post sort of misogynistic things, gay rights, but you post homophobic things, Jewish people, but you post anti-Semitic comments like, oh, that's a Jewish name, too militaristic, is he a member of Mossad? If you claim to care about the pensioners, and when you reply, it's a mock reply, a resident who said, look, I didn't vote for you, but I'd like to ask you about my bins. He said, here's the reply. Dear resident, F your bins. I'm re-elected and without your vote. Screw you, Dave. P.S. Hopefully you'll have croaked it by the all-outs, meaning the council elections. I mean, ha, 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 ha. You're wishing a voter dead because she's elderly, who doesn't support you, which has written a perfectly polite, reasonable letter about wanting her bins collected to a councillor. Should Andrew Gwynn have lost his job? Should both MPs lose the whip, and should either of them be deselected? Look,
Julia, I've worked in politics a long time. Let me let you into a few secrets. Every single politician in Westminster is in a group like this, making comments like this all the blooming time.
As are most journalists.
As are most journalists, as is everyone. Everybody I know who speaks to themselves has sent memes round saying to each other, how quickly we're going to have to leave the country if our group chat got leaked. And that's what's happened here. One of these, they've fallen out with somebody that was in this group chat, and he's run along to the papers and he sold the story. Fine, fill his boots, whatever. But look, all of our politicians are talking like this. My issue is not what they've said, and actually, I'd kind of say, whatever, like, it's your own group. Some of that was probably quite funny. Some of it was probably not so funny. That's life. Jokes come and they go. But these people hold themselves up at this angelic standard. They claim that they are the perfect representation of human beings.
They would be calling for, if it was any other party, they would be calling for them to go.
And that's the other thing. They all know. They go on the television. But there'll be a Tory politician yesterday who'll have gone on the television and said, this is outrageous, this is disgusting, this is appalling. Yet they know, as they're saying it, that were a group chat that they were in to have ever leaked, the shoe would be on the other foot and they would be out. And there is this rank hypocrisy where politicians pretend that they are these perfect people. And actually, do you know what? I would have enormous respect for the politician who's put his hands up and says, do you know what? I'm in a group. We post some stuff. I'm not perfect. I'm trying to do a good job for my constituents. This is my values. This is what I'm doing.
I get it out of my system here.
But do you know what? I don't hold myself up to be perfect in the first place. But Keir Starmer, this Labour lot, have all held themselves up as these paragons of virtues. And when the mask slips, when the dam cracks, it's all going to go pouring away.
Post by your own petard. Live by the sword, die by the sword. All those are the phrases, and that's where I come down to. Like, I've always been reaching. I said I think people should be allowed to have private conversations. I would even defend some of those awful police officers. Some of them went to prison. Now I can understand. There's if you're in a group, a police group at work, and you're posting things which are unbelievably inappropriate, it would I think did reveal that actually their views on women, some of them, and their views on black people, frankly, made them unfit to do their job. And I think that's a different thing. Does this make them unfit to be an MP? Well, that's going to be up to voters, isn't it? They can't lose their job as an MP unless the voters decide that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, because I do reserve the right of people to have private WhatsApp chats, no matter how awful and inappropriate. And I genuinely, I think I write worse to my own husband about him. And likewise, it depends. What is your sense of humour? I don't know. It's all just, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Get in touch. Send us a WhatsApp. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Message 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. You know the numbers. We're going to get your messages coming up in just a few moments. Lots more I want to talk about, including the farmers' protest, Trump and steel tariffs, and also just the extraordinary release of 3 more hostages from Hamas, the state that they were in, and the unbelievable torturous cruelty that they put one of those men through in the last few moments of his captivity. We'll talk about that. This is Talk, Home of Common Sense.
At long last, common sense has to prevail. The reason you make the difference about men and women's sport is men are stronger. It's that simple. So you have that sort of basis that any sports that rely on strength, physical strength, you make the distinction.
Yeah. And the IOC, its policy is a little more complicated than that. It actually is sport by sport.
Yes.
So in the Olympics, you have quite a few sports where trans women, in other words, blokes pretending to be women, are banned.
Yes.
From competing against women, and yet other sports they are allowed to do it, including boxing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense. 10:27 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong's also still with me. Let's get straight to your calls, though. And I have a funny feeling, a lot of you are going to feel the same way about this story about this Albanian criminal. 2 years behind bars because he just had 250 grand in cash, which was from proceeds of crime. You know, the way you do when you've been given leave to remain in this country, and bizarrely having arrived here illegally, British citizenship. What on earth were the authorities thinking? Do we have literally no bar that is not too low for someone to become a citizen of this country? You'll have to stay. One of the reasons given by the tribunal was that his son is a fuss eater and wouldn't like foreign chicken nuggets. I kid you not. Let's talk about this with Andrew, who's on the line in Halifax. Hello, Andrew.
Morning, Julia.
Morning. What do you make of this story?
Well, it just highlights the absurdity of the system. But of course, what we'll have is a lot of pretend challenges and pearl clutching and hand wringing, and very little will be done about it. And the reason is, Julian, this is very, very important to emphasise this, is that ever since the spawn of Satan, every Prime Minister and government in this country has been committed to a policy of mass migration to change the character of the country. It's been done deliberately, and whether that is done legally or illegally, they don't care. That's why 1 in 12 of London's population are illegals.
Well, that's and I believe it's probably higher than that. I think there are probably 2+ million people in this country illegally, and they have no idea who's here. They don't even know who's here, who arrived here legally on a visa. They don't even know, mate. I mean, it's just utterly bizarre. I never used to think this was like a deliberate ploy. I think they're just utterly incompetent, and actually, you know, and particularly Labour and then the Tories helping their mates running big businesses who really like a nice supply of cheap labour. That's what they want. They want wages to be undercut, but they go, no, of course, bringing in millions of other people who'll work for lower wages wouldn't undercut British workers. I mean, really? Why wouldn't it? Have you done Economics 101? Now I'm with you.
Well,
I don't. There's no other explanation unless they do genuinely think that, well, we just need to change as a country.
Oh, absolutely. If it was purely about economics, they wouldn't have invented the doctrine of multiculturalism. That is the key. I mean, I had the misfortune of having to go to London at the weekend.
It's not that bad.
Oh, well, I mean, I went to the new ABBA Voyage, which was absolutely incredible. But I was staying at a hotel in Stratford. I was there for 2 days, and the only place in those 2 days where I heard English being spoken with any sort of regularity was the audience inside that arena. This is the
interesting thing. I mean, I noticed it. Obviously, I live in central London. It is one of those things, and people go, oh, we got a problem with people being brown or black. No, nothing to do with colour, nothing to do with anything. Like, it is literally just like not hearing an English accent of any sort for, you know, wherever you are. It is one of those things you just suddenly go, that's quite strange. Like, why aren't there? Why are so many people not British on our streets? I think it's worth noting. Andrew, thank you so much. So appreciate your call. Phil is in Hertfordshire. Hello, Phil. Do you like a chicken nugget at home or abroad?
Oh, I love it. Obviously, this Albanian guy with his 250 grand, he's obviously been winging it, hasn't he, to get all that?
I mean, I tell you what, I don't know what his hourly rate is, but wow, he's doing well at that car wash, isn't he?
He's doing.
I mean, that man,
well.
he scrubs the hub up very well.
He's probably got the side of chicken nuggets on the go round the back. That's what's going on. The thing is, how do they know that this lad doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets?
Hasn't been abroad.
Well, exactly. Has he been back to Albania by any chance?
Maybe he could eat something different. I mean, now, I'm not joking. We actually had a debate about it in this office, and I said, I thought the whole point, I'm thinking chicken nuggets, I'm thinking Mucky D's, right? I thought the whole point of McDonald's was it was the same thing in every country. That's literally the point. So you'd be travelling abroad and you go, oh, do you know what? I fancy something familiar, and you get the same meal. But I'm assured by some members of my team, no, they do taste different in different countries.
Oh, I've got no idea.
Let's have a phone in about that.
but Julia, the thing is, this purely smacks of woke hysteria, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, that's what it is. It's hysteria. Yeah. I mean, do these people actually stop, take hold of what they're saying and logically think about what they're actually saying? But
this is part of the problem, is I think, you know, the parole board's in prison. I think these tribunals, these immigration tribunals, most of the lawyers, the judges, I think they have just been absolutely captured by woke, and they simply do not represent just normal people's views on anything anymore. I mean, they're completely bonkers, aren't they?
But they are the minority. They are the minority.
Yes.
But the thing is, they think they're the majority, but they're not.
Well, they don't mix with anyone who doesn't agree with them. That's the thing. Phil, so appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed. Quick word from Sam Armstrong.
Everybody in this country can see exactly what is happening. And this is why Labour, if they think they can pull the wool over our eyes with press releases about how many arrests they're making, have got another thing coming. We can see what's happening to our high streets. We can see what's happening to our town centres.
I said that this is my thing. They think we're blind and stupid a lot of the time. They really do. Anyway, do welcome more of your calls on this. And I want to hear your thoughts on what the punishment should be, if any, for those Labour MPs in that WhatsApp group. Do give us a call. I'd love to know what you think on that, because we're the home of free speech as well as common sense here. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Right now, though, it is time to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning £25,000.
It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full term.
Right, well, good luck with that, everyone. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to a former Labour Special Advisor about a lot of the big stories in the news. Do stay tuned. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:36 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong is still with us. Delighted to welcome Paul Richards to the show, former Labour Special Advisor. A very, very good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much for joining us. There's an awful lot to talk about today. First of all, I just want to talk about Labour MPs and what they write in their WhatsApp groups. Now, as Sam and I have been discussing, pretty much every journalist, politician, I think pretty much everyone in the country is in a WhatsApp group where the odd thing has been said, or quite a lot of things have been said, which they perhaps wouldn't want to be made public, perhaps even to their own husbands and wives, let alone, if you're an MP, their own constituents. What did you make of the WhatsApp group that two Labour MPs were in, Andrew Gwynn and Oliver Ryan? Andrew Gwynn's been sacked as a health minister. Both Ryan and Gwynn face losing the Labour whip. Should they be punished, and if so, how much?
I mean, you're right to say that this kind of language is beyond the pale, but it's not unique to politics. You know, what do you think waiters say about our backs in restaurants?
I know, I've done that.
About their pensions, or people working in shops about tricky customers. You know, the difference here is, of course, they're public servants and we're paying them. And second of all, it's written down. And, you know, it's so stupid to write this stuff down in a way that you think you've got an invisibility cloak and no one's ever going to see it. Because...
But also in a large group, not like to one other person who you trust. This was actually quite a large WhatsApp group.
And somebody's dobbed him in, you know, someone's leaked this stuff out. The Mail are going to sort of string this out all week with the revelations of more messages. Who else is in the group? We don't know. And it just makes that point. Don't write anything down at all that you're not happy to see in print a few hours later. Now, your question was, should they be punished? Well, I'm going to see if I can get you to admit something here, Julia. You're a very fair-minded person. I think Starmer acted swiftly and decisively within 3 hours of the Mail phoning up the press people.
I think that anything else would have been utterly untenable. So he did what he had to do.
Well, I don't know, because sometimes they drag these things out into the Monday.
Keir Starmer did not act in an incompetent, dithering way. Well done.
Very fair. Well done. But I just think it shows the depth of the despair around this, and the fact that it was such heinous language, so egregious, utterly beyond the pale. Because, you know, the speed, the alacrity with which the Labour Party acted shows the horror. And I will have to say, I'm in lots of these groups, including with ministers. This is not the language that is used generally in these groups. It is an outlier.
I'm genuinely in the view. I think people, as I said to Sam, I think everyone should be allowed to make jokes they want. I don't think there is any. I think there should be any censorship of private conversations, private. It's what it tells us about what does he really think. In particular, Andrew Gwynn, I thought some of the comments, but you know, got Jewish name. Is he in Mossad? I mean, that is blatant. I mean, that's just weird. I would say definitely anti-Semitic. People joking about, Diane Abbott and Black History Month, and again, not necessarily racist. Some comments about a gay colleague. It depends how you want to interpret things. I think there are people who can make jokes. You can quite easily make jokes which are not actually those things, even though someone might interpret them. But the comment about the pensioner, the 70-year-old, saying, you're croaking. Now, clearly a joke. Should someone lose their job because of a joke? Or is it about his poor judgment? Or is it about how bad it makes the Labour government look at a time when basically a lot of elderly people may well, in his words, croak this winter because they haven't got the ability to put their heating on because they've lost their winter fuel allowance?
Well, I think it's a combination of all of those things. It was a very poor thought, a very poor idea to write it down, and a very poor thing to say at all. I mean, he didn't say it to the pensioner. It's worth just pointing out.
Nice
he thought he was a closed group of banter amongst friends, and he's been found out. But he has, the thing about punishment. I mean, he's not only not a minister, he's out as a Labour Party member.
He's lost the whip.
He's lost the whip, but he's also no longer a member of the party. And also, I strongly suspect there will now be a by-election in that seat. So he won't be a member of parliament either. So, on Friday, he went home with his red boxes as a government minister. And Monday morning, he's woken up out on his ear.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, there are a lot of us would say, I live by the sword, die by the sword. The Labour lot do a lot of finger wagging. He would absolutely been at the front of the queue calling for someone to go if they were in a different party.
There's going to be quite a lot of Conservative MPs looking at their WhatsApp groups over this weekend and deleting like crazy, I would think, because this is not unique, I suspect.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realise you can't necessarily delete it on someone else's phone, but there we are, what they've seen. Here's the thing, OK, we'll see what happens there. Let's talk about policies that actually impact people, and the mass arrival, mass immigration, illegal workers, people overstaying visas. We've had a big blitz over illegal migrants working car washes, nail bars, restaurants and the like. Some 4,000 arrests in just 7 months. We've had 600 in the last month. That works out at 18, 19 a day across the whole country. This, as we emerged, that an Albanian criminal not only got into the country illegally, lied, and then was bizarrely given British citizenship, by the way, all under Tory watch. But he can't be deported because the tribunal says partly because of his son's fussy eating and he won't like foreign chicken nuggets. This is an absolute disaster area. Do you think for a moment that voters are going to be convinced that Labour really care about this issue and are going to tackle it?
Well, on the specific, government ministers are going to challenge this in the courts because it's the chicken nugget case I'm talking about, because that's plainly balmy. And this is where the legal blob just doesn't get it and doesn't understand. And it may be the letter of the law, but, oh, my God, it's not common sense
It's definitely not the letter of the law. It's interpretation of the law.
Well, exactly that. And, that's why Home Office ministers have been up on the radio and TV this morning saying we're going to challenge this because it just goes against everything. On the broader point about illegals, I mean, yes, you're right. It was on the Tory watch and Labour's trying to sort of fix it now, but the messaging going out with these videos that are going out to people is to just explain that we have got record returns, we are cracking down, it's something we take terribly seriously.
Well, they are record returns, and the Tories abjectly failed on this, and they literally weren't even processing asylum seekers for a long time. They weren't actually deporting people. But here's the thing, even the numbers we're talking about, a drop in the ocean compared to the number of people here and the number of people arriving every single day.
I think that the video showing people being, basically detained and returned may well serve to put people off.
No, most of these people, they're detained. They're not. There's no evidence these people will actually be deported.
Well, I think that's the way it ends up, is that they get kicked out. But I think the fact is people read in their newspapers that you come to England and you get a nice hotel and you get loads of money and clothes and stuff, which isn't true. Then I think that's going to these scenes of people being booted out of the country may well deter people, and that's a good thing. So, yes, it's a drop in the ocean. Happy to concede that, but it's a good start after 14 years of just nothing much happening. And I think it will end up with where we want to be, which is that if you come here to work and you're legal, then great. And if you're not, and you come here to commit crime or to sponge, then you're out. And that's the way the Labour wants to approach this.
Can I also ask you about where we are economically? Because, we haven't even got to April this year when we're actually going to see those national insurance changes really impacting businesses. And I have heard some Labour people say, oh, I don't know why businesses are cutting jobs now. The national insurance hike hasn't even come into force yet. Funnily enough, they do a bit of forward planning, which it turns out that Labour governments don't. But businesses cut jobs or slowed recruitment last month at levels not seen in over a decade. That is according to two business surveys which have been released today, showing companies are cutting costs, scaling back recruitment, trimming their workforce before that £25 billion tax hike, with national insurance rates for employers going up and the threshold at which you have to start paying national insurance on your lowest paid employees coming down massively as well. Why on earth does Labour not listen to business on this? So they talk about wanting growth. If you actually put a tax on jobs, which is quite literally what this is, you dampen the economy, the demand, and firms are forced to lay people off, cut wages and not take new people on, you're not going to have growth.
Well, you'll get growth, for example, by increasing the national minimum wage, which is coming down the line.
How does that deliver growth?
Well, because people spend the extra money in shops and businesses and go on holidays and they do things.
No, wait a minute. Not if employers hire fewer people.
Well, I think as the economy does grow, businesses will see that they can take on more people. I think there's a sort of shock we're going through right now, and it is going to get worse, but it will get better by the end of the political cycle.
It's going to get better in 2029.
National minimum wages do actually help the economy as well as individual workers.
I'm in favour of the national minimum wage. I think people should be paid a fair wage. No,
that's why we're putting it up, and that's great news.
Yeah, but that's not the only issue for employers. It's the national insurance contributions going up, 25 billion quid's worth, the threshold coming down, all the other things. We've got pub owners, and in particular in hospitality, say basically I know a number of people who run successful business saying they don't think they're going to be in business in a year or two's time. It's just not sustainable with the extra costs they've got. You can't get growth from imposing extra costs on employers.
Well, you can if you grow the economy, which is what this mission is all about.
No. You grow the economy from employers being able to employ more people and pay them more and booming output. If they have to hire fewer people and they're not even giving them bigger wage rises, then they're not going to be able to grow the economy. You've got it like the wrong way round. Governments don't grow economies. Private businesses grow economies. And if you make it harder for them to grow, actually stop them growing, you won't get growth.
But you don't get it from low wage, insecure, flexible work where people are getting ripped off.
Lots of people love flexible work, actually. That's not what we're talking about. That's got nothing to do with national insurance. That's got nothing to do with national insurance.
Whether they're going to work today or not. And you don't get it from a low wage, low skill economy. And what the government's trying to do.
That's got nothing to do with national insurance.
And I think because the money is going into apprenticeships, it's going into green skills, it's going to things that we do need.
Is there a possibility that people running businesses know more about how to run businesses and to grow their business than people in government or civil servants who have never run a business in their life? Is that a possibility?
Hang on, look at all of the investment coming in. I mean, the big investment summit a few months ago showed there's a real vote of confidence from international investors.
Well, hold on a minute then. How come confidence isn't booming and how come businesses are laying staff off?
What about all the house building, Julia?
When's that starting? When's that happening?
As soon as we clear the blockers out the way in the NIMBYs, and we can start building houses.
Brilliant, but it hasn't started yet.
All the jobs in the supply chain, which is why I say it will take time. But it is something that the mission is there to achieve because we want a growing.
Listen, I hope you succeed because
public services and a great private sector. That's what
there are millions and millions of people who rely on you being able to do that. I've just little bit worrying about whether you've got it the wrong way around. But there we are. Paul Richards, we'll leave it there. Former Labour Special Advisor, thank you for that. Sam Armstrong, very brief word from you.
I feel a bit sorry for Labour. They keep saying the economy, migration, it's going to get better. We just can't tell you when or how. But we're quite good at this, so soon it will get better.
Soon. 2029, end of the political cycle. Do you think most people's businesses can survive that long?
It's the wish and hope strategy.
I just think it's people who I don't know how to run a business, right? So I don't tell people how to run a business. I think they should tell us what would work for them. Call me old-fashioned. I wouldn't tell a heart surgeon how to do a heart operation either. Maybe we should let the people who know how to grow the economy, let them grow the economy. Mind-blowing idea. Coming up to 10:49, we're going to take a quick break. Up next, we're going to be talking about the farmers' protest. An awful lot of farmers, an awful lot of tractors are going to descend on Westminster today. We're going to talk to Alan Miller, co-founder of Together Declaration, live in Westminster. This is Talk.
Let's try that again. Fix the foundation. Here, stop. Let me try that. Okay, bear with me, I'll try it. Fix the foundation. By Jove, I think he's got it. He's got it. That is, so he was taught to speak like a nasally challenged dork. And anyway, he should get his money back. He should. He still sounds terrible. Fix the foundation. My government. Anyway, time for a bird.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong is still with me, and delighted to be joined right now by Alan Miller. He's co-founder of the Together Declaration. He's live in Westminster right now as the farmers are once again staging a tractor protest against inheritance tax changes. They started early this morning in North London, and they're making their way through the streets of London to Westminster, where they're going to be lobbying MPs at 1 o'clock today, where once again there's going to be a debate in Westminster Hall as a result of a petition on those inheritance tax changes that hit family farms so hard. Very good morning to you, Alan.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks so much for joining us. Now, I tell you what, it's one of the things I love about the farmers is they ain't going away. And unlike a lot of these other feel-good protesters, now orange T-shirts and others, they're not put off by a little bit of cold and rain and bad weather, are they? Because they are hardier than that, and they are still turning out. Tell us just briefly, for people, again, who don't keep up with this, what the farmers are protesting about.
Yes, Julia. So basically, at the last budget, unexpectedly, because the government said before they got in, it's a question of our food security. It's a question of a continuity, a way of life. It's not just farmers, though, Julia, because it is our farmers. It's also family businesses. And now they've said to veterans as well. And that's why Together is working with Farmers to Action, who's the largest growing farmers organisation, over 5,000 supporters already, growing daily, rapidly. Over 45 counties have been doing actions across the country and saying this is unacceptable, and uniting with businesses that we've seen speaking this morning at Mill Hill, at the biggest London working farm, where we've had all sorts of business speakers, veterans, Nigel Farage spoke, and even Derek Chisora, the champion boxer, was there from sport. We are now here at Whitehall, and as you say, there's going to be a parliamentary debate about this today. The public, we know, support the end of this. They're overwhelmingly against it. And we're saying now, make sure you tell your MP and your councillors, because it's May elections coming up.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? And the thing about the Together Declaration, you've taken up many causes over the last few years. So it's lockdown, vaccine mandates and freedom of speech and women's rights and safety. It's all, there's a running theme through it, and that's about listen to the people. If we stand together, instead of little individual groups trying to sort of have their say, people stand together and say, no, you have to listen to us. We're the people, we know what we're talking about. Then MPs will start getting some decisions right. And it's a fantastic movement. I'm so impressed with what you do. But this is the thing, people forget it's about food security. If people say, well, I don't know anyone in farming, I live in a city, I don't know anything about this. More than half of the food that we eat in this country comes from British farms, and a lot of those farms are family-run farms. They've been in the family for years, and as we've learned, Jeremy Clarkson and others exposing just how hard that life is, and the margins they work under. That actually, when the government's like, oh, if you've got a farm worth, over $1 million, these are only rich people who pay this. They don't understand the land can be worth a lot of money, but you've got a huge amount of equipment, a huge amount of costs for doing the work. But actually, most of these farmers, they're not rich. They're just doing a job that, on paper they look rich, but the only way they could pay this tax is to sell off the farm.
That's absolutely right, Julia. 0.5% return of investment on farms. Other businesses just would not do it. They do it because there's a sense of duty, responsibility. They love it. If you speak to farmers, they'll tell you, we love doing it.
It's in the blood,
It's It's in the blood, it's heritage, it's our way of life, it's our culture. And the British public love that about farmers. And even as, you know, I'm a city dweller, and often people think, well, does it just come off the shelves? We don't know how it gets there. But there's a sense that this is part of our way of life. And Julia, we can't just have solar farms. We can't just have BlackRock buying everything up. We've seen with our energy, if we have to bring it from abroad, the volatility of the world markets, and what then starts happening. And frankly, the standards in Britain are much higher. So the type of food that we're getting, and we know in America, the Make America Healthy Again, much of that is about food. And most importantly, it's not democratic. To say you're not going to do something, then come in, a bit like with the pensioners, and impose it on us. And we've had enough of these technocrats. That's why we're saying everyone stand together. Make sure you tell your MP and be united on this.
Absolutely. Well, we said there's going to be a lot of tractors in Whitehall. Very hard for the MPs to ignore. But again, if people don't speak out, then they get ignored. So good luck with that, Alan. Really appreciate that. Alan Miller, the co-founder of Together Declaration. Sam Armstrong, you work with a lot of MPs, with a lot of Tory MPs. Do you think they are paying attention, listening? We've had Nigel Farage is on this march. We've had Kemi Badenoch has joined them outside in protests outside Parliament as well and met with them. Do you think Labour gets it, or is their view, these people don't vote for us anyway, we don't care? Yeah, actually, I think the Labour Party is quite intelligent in some ways. It has a very clear sense of who its people are, but it also has a very clear sense of who its people are not. And it has decided that rural people, the people involved in the farming system, and it goes beyond farmers, right? It's the delivery drivers that pick up things from farms and take them there. It's a whole ecosystem, a whole little local economy. It's just decided that those aren't its people. It's decided broadly that pensioners aren't its people. It's decided that people who care about migration aren't its people. And it's decided you're a train driver, you're a teacher, nurse. I mean, who else have they got?
But, well, they had 34% of people at the last election. The Green Party had another 6%. There's 12.5% in the Lib Dems. That is the Labour overall coalition. It, frankly, has made a very clear decision. It doesn't care about 55% of the population, the majority of people in this country, working people that pay for everything, that keep everything going.
Sector,
It doesn't care, because it has found its group, and it is just going to appeal to them until it stops. And for now, it looks like, people are going to get bored to the back teeth of me saying this, it is working. The Labour Party's plan is working. I mean, the working people of this country are getting done over and over and over again. Yeah, well, we shall talk more about that in the next hour. Lots more to talk about, lots of calls coming in as well about this Albanian criminal who was allowed to stay in Britain by a tribunal because it would be unduly harsh to basically send his son back to Albania because he doesn't eat foreign chicken nuggets. I kid you not, that's actually real. Going to talk about that, those MP WhatsApps. Going to talk about the outrageous treatment of the Israeli hostages. Plenty more besides. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Thank you so much for joining me. It's just gone 3 minutes past 11. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and this is the home of common sense. As you already know, you can listen on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watch on YouTube or your connected device. And if you are watching, you get to see the wonderful Sam Armstrong in all his happy glory. Got a lovely big cheery smile today. He's being very chirpy on a Monday morning. I think you're rather enjoying all the news stories today. I have a funny feeling. There is so much more to talk about, including the Albanian criminal allowed to stay in Britain after an immigration tribunal ruled. I kid you not. Genuinely, if you're tuning in, this isn't true. It's true. It actually happened. They ruled it would be unduly harsh for his 10-year-old son, among his 3 children, to be forced to move to Albania or be separated from his father by staying in Britain. Even though he doesn't speak English, he speaks Albanian, this kid, after 10 years living here, because he wouldn't like foreign chicken nuggets. That was genuinely one of the factors that was mentioned in the tribunal. This comes, though, as raids on illegal migrant workers in car washes, nail bars, restaurants and the like has seen nearly 4,000 arrests in just 7 months, which sounds really impressive, apart from the fact that way more than that people actually turned up in the country illegally, and it works out about 18 or 19 people a day. More than that turn up most weeks in this country on those migrant boats, let alone overstay their visas. So this is a drop in the ocean. We're also going to be talking more about that the Labour MP, Andrew Gwynn, who's now sacked not only as health minister, lost the whip and is out of the Labour Party for what he said in a Labour WhatsApp group, but also Labour MP Oliver Ryan has been named as a second MP in that group. I've just been informed that apparently another WhatsApp group involving Tory MPs is going to be on the front pages of papers tomorrow, so that's going to be very interesting indeed. Plus, we are going to be talking about the freed Israeli hostage Eli Sharabi. He did not know that his British wife and 2 daughters had been murdered by Hamas until after his release on Saturday. He was paraded before the cameras. It is the most extraordinary tale of those last 3 hostage releases. We're going to talk about all of that here at Talk. Sam Armstrong, thanks again for joining us. Let's talk first of all about this Albanian criminal and his deportation. We're asking you today about this. Get your calls in. I mean, it blows my mind and yet doesn't surprise me at the same time, which is kind of like most of the stories about migration we get in this country. An Albanian criminal called Clevis Disha. He came to this country illegally at the age of 15 as an unaccompanied child. He claimed to be from Yugoslavia. He wasn't. He was from Albania. He had no right to be here. For some reason, he ends up being allowed to stay here. And utterly extraordinary, not only allowed to stay here, he then gets indefinite leave to remain and gets UK citizenship in 2006. I mean, just extraordinary. So that will happen, by the way, under the Labour Party. Back in 2017, he got jailed for being caught with 250 grand in cash, known to be the proceeds of crime, you know, because we've all had a spare 250 grand in cash in our bedside drawer, haven't we? Home Secretary at the time, Dame Priti Patel, ordered he should be deported to Albania, stripped of his UK citizenship. He appealed, and at the lower tier immigration tribunal, the judge ruled it would be, quote, unduly harsh for his 10-year-old son, who did not speak anything but Albanian, bizarrely, to be forced to go with him to Albania or be separated from him and kept here. I mean, that's his dad's choice, not my problem. And part of his additional needs. No evidence for any of this produced. A neighbour said, basically, he was a bit fussy about socks and also eating foreign chicken nuggets. How did he know what foreign chicken nuggets tasted like? I don't know. But unbelievably, the case is going to be reheard by a different judge to decide on the sole issue of this. The case is ongoing. This case is ongoing since 2017 when he was jailed. The guy should have been long gone. The guy should never have been given right to leave, stay here. Certainly not British citizenship. The moment he was done for a crime, out on his ear. It is amazing this is happening. This, by the way, on the day we're supposed to be concentrating on Labour, their big announcement today, their minister out and about the arrest of illegal foreign workers. A record 600 arrested in just 1 month. Arrested, not charged. Not criminalised, not deported. That's just arrested, right? Channel migrants detected in the black economy, nail bars, car washes, restaurants, delivery people. It's across the board. I would be surprised if 10% of London's workers weren't in the illegal economy. But these numbers are, 19 people a day. 600 sounds a lot, doesn't it? But 19 people a day. Sam Armstrong, what do you make of this?
1 in 12 people, at least 1 in 12 people in London is an illegal migrant.
That's
someone
an estimate of the Layton
broke
report, yeah.
into our country, that took 2 fingers up to our laws, that said, do you know what, deserving people that want to come into the country, I don't care about you, I'm going to skip the queue, I'm going to pay a bunch of organised criminals to take me across on an incredibly dangerous journey, to then request that the British Coast Guard comes and picks me up, comes and drags me back and puts me in a hotel at their expense, and then waltzes around London. This is not a small problem. This is not just at your local car wash.
Yeah, why are you bothered about this? It's happening over there. It's across the board.
This is everywhere. You walk around London now, you see 12 people, one of them stole the right to live in this country from you. They have stolen money from you by making you pay to put them up in a hotel. And you want to tell me that 18 arrests, 19 arrests a day is going to even touch the sides? It's not. It's disgusting. It's disgraceful.
I mean, apart again, an arrest turning into actually anything happening is another thing. But most of the people who are working illegally in the black economy, and I get sort of across the country, it's not just in London, most of the people working illegally are actually people who arrived here legally. But for some reason, we don't keep a record who's come in, who's come out. But also, it is an offence for an employer to employ someone knowing that, you need to know that they are legal. I can remember when I was going back to work from maternity leave, and one of my mates and I, we have kids the same age, let's share a nanny, because actually, weirdly, it was cheaper than the local nurseries. London's nurseries, you're looking at a fortune. And we employed, a lady, and I only did someone part-time. And I mentioned it on the show last week, lovely woman, absolutely wonderful. And I said, okay, can I share? I need to obviously see your visa to work. She was somewhere in Eastern Europe, but not in the EU. Perfect English, of course, And she didn't have a visa to work. And I'm like, well, I can't employ you then. You can't. I said, you can't work here. You have got no right to work here. But of course, someone would have employed her. She had a CV showing she'd been employed for years. But this is the thing. So I want to hear from you. What's your reaction? This story particularly about the Albanian criminals, also the fact that we're having this crackdown. Do you believe anything will come of it? Do you believe that Labour, are really going to get on top of this? Or are they only doing it because they're so worried about reform and the threat from them? By the way, I think the same with the Tories. The only reason they did it, because I'm not sure. One of the biggest problems is no one's cracked down on this because the Tories didn't bother for years. It's utterly bizarre. Is the problem the lawyers? We've got a government of lawyers now, people in tribunals and people appealing, and lawyers saying, oh, no, but, his kid doesn't like chucking chicken nuggets abroad. Utterly bizarre stuff, but it's actually real. This is like, the EU and bent bananas. No, that was true. It was a real directive, and we're told, oh, don't worry your pretty little heads. This is actually happening. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can send us a message on X at talkTV. You can also, of course, get in touch on the YouTube page. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. It does blow me away, these stories, but at the same time I'm like, well, yeah, we know this was happening. It is not beyond the wit of man. Donald Trump is showing this, and it's interesting, the latest polling in the States, more than 60% of Americans do actually, so damn sight more than the people who voted for Donald Trump in the election, do actually support the mass roundup and deportation of illegal migrants. And yet you've got the Democrats going, this is outrageous. The American media, this is awful. Sorry, and they're particularly, they're going after people with criminal convictions who are illegally in the country. Why is this controversial to anybody?
Well, the truth is, nobody cares when politicians now whinge and whine and all the rest of it. And do you know why? It's because they have been like the boy who cries wolf for years and years. They've said, no, it's not happening. Yeah. Then they've said, no, there were special circumstances. Yeah. No, that's fake news. And yet around everyone, on every high street in this country, it has changed. Yeah. The picture has changed. The gangs that are loitering outside, the shop facades, the Turkish barbers. When I grew up, I had a barber called Colin. He would cut my hair every month or so, and it was a really nice old bloke in his 60s and 70s. Those people have simply been put out of business. Every single barber in this country that is opening now are Turkish barbers that the NCA say, the National Crime Agency say, are a major front for illegal migration.
There are some in many towns and cities and some of the local high streets. There used to be 4 barbers, and now there are 60. That scale, and they're basically just money laundering exercises. A lot of them are not, there may be many that are legitimate, but yeah. But this is my thing. So if everyone knows this, Yeah? What are you doing about it?
It is staring us blindingly in the face. And you bring up mass deportations. You ask the British public, would they support mass deportations, rounding up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people in this country that are here illegally? They would support it tomorrow.
And I don't even care if you're working and you're doing a production job now. You don't have a right to be here. I don't have a right to just go to America and just start working there. I don't have a right to do that, so I don't do it. If I did and I was found out, I would expect to be deported.
You can't. We don't let people steal goods in this country, although sometimes we're trying to.
We've literally legalised that.
We cannot allow people the right to be able to steal from us, the right to live in this country, to go off, and then to come up 10 years later, 15 years later, and turn around and say, no, you can't deport me because my child doesn't like the chicken nuggets they get back in Albania. What has happened to this country? We had an empire. We won the Second World War. We restored freedom throughout all of Europe. And in a generation, in living memory, we have gone from the greatest country on earth to a country that cannot deport organised foreign criminals who stole the right to come into this country because of their children's preferences for chicken-based fast foods.
Nailed it. What are your thoughts? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get your messages very soon. Let's also talk about these WhatsApp groups. So we've got 2 Labour MPs. Andrew Gwynn was actually Health Minister. He's out on his ear after the WhatsApp groups, WhatsApp messages in his group. Thousands of messages being posted. Poor judgment, sexist, racist, misogynistic, homophobic, anti-Semitic jokes. I think the one that everyone picked up on was basically a mock response to a pensioner who'd written to a local councillor, David Sedgwick, and Andrew Gwynn posted, this is a load of MPs in his local area and councillors, posted a mock reply. He said, "Dear resident, F your bins. I'm re-elected and without your vote," because the lady had written saying, look, I'm not your, didn't vote for you. "Screw you, Dave. P.S. Hopefully you'll have croaked it by the all-outs," meaning the council elections. Basically saying, I know it's a joke. I don't think he's honestly saying he should do that. Let's not be literal about this. And we all make inappropriate jokes. Well, I think most people make. I think people who don't make inappropriate jokes are a little bit on the dull side, to be honest with you. Would I like my WhatsApps to go out? I've got to be honest with you. I think I say so many supposedly inappropriate things every day, apparently. I mean, on the radio and in person, I don't think anyone would be surprised. I don't think it'd be a story, to be honest with you. And I've always think, I'm not a hypocrite. I've always defended the right people. I can vehemently disagree with someone's general political stance or even what they've actually said, but still defend their right to say it. I think people have a right to make lewd, inappropriate, jokes in private. I think that I don't want the thought police policing what people say in private conversations at home or in the pub or in a WhatsApp group. It shows a lack of judgment for someone who is a government minister who would be a waggy finger, oh, you should go, you shouldn't do this, oh, outrageous, be outraged by anything a Tory or Reform or anyone else would do, and yet would in his own private WhatsApps do this. It's hypocrisy. It's poor judgment. He had to go. There's no way that Keir Starmer could keep this guy on. Another younger Labour MP is only 29 years old. I'm not entirely sure 29-year-olds should be MPs. I think you should have a little bit of experience of life. Oliver Ryan, he's MP for Burnley, another leading member of the group. He can't say, oh, I didn't see anything, Gov. He posted more than 2,000 messages himself. His career looks like it's over before it's begun. Should the consequences of these sort of WhatsApp groups be so big? Given that, just been told that tomorrow this story is going to be all over one of the papers is involving the Tories and one particular WhatsApp group. Look, and apparently the quote is, it's pretty bad.
Here's the truth. Every single MP that you have ever met, maybe some of the old ones are the exceptions, maybe some of the really ancient dinosaurs are the exceptions.
What is WhatsApp, people?
But bar them, every single one is in one of these groups, and any day now, they could fall out with one of their friends. Yeah. That friend could take all the screenshots, send it to a newspaper, and their career would be over.
Yeah.
Now, I say that that's wrong. I say, actually, do you know what? Let people have jokes. The worse jokes, the more inappropriate a joke is, the more funny I find it.
Yep.
So actually, do you know what? I thought a little bit more of Andrew Gwynn for some of the jokes. Not all of them.
No, some of them were actually quite funny.
Quite funny. But he has been a clear perpetrator, a joint co-conspirator in setting a standard for public life, which is ridiculous.
And cancel culture. Labour completely signed up to cancel culture.
Totally. And he said, cancel. I bet he would have said, "Oh, cancel culture was a myth. It's just people being held responsible for their own actions." Well, you got what you asked for, Andrew.
Yeah, that's the, for me, it's hypocrisy. I think that's, again, it's like the lockdown. It's like, no one cares whether Boris Johnson ate cake or had a glass of wine or... No, it's hypocrisy. That's always what gets politicians in the end. I really want to know your thoughts on this, because I think we're both free speechers, but I mean, genuinely, I'd be absolutely appalled. I mean, there's things, he can't run as a Labour candidate again in his local area when basically anything he says, all the opposition parties would just print leaflets with what his joke about a 70-year-old. But also, why are you mocking? He was a pain in the backside person who's constantly getting in trouble and arguing about every little thing and being a pain. But if it's someone asking, as a resident who pays their council tax, about their bins being collected, I don't know what you're mocking her for. I don't know what you're mocking. I think it's just outrageous. Let's also talk about trade tariffs. Every morning now we wake up and there's a new story, and it involves Donald Trump not only being the first sitting president to go to the Super Bowl, which apparently is very big news to people. I just don't care, but there we are. I had a talking to from a teenager about not knowing enough about the act in the halftime, but I'll still cope with my life. Donald Trump said he's going to announce a 25% import tax on all steel and aluminium entering the US across the board. Biggest impact's going to be on Canada, but 10% of UK exports of steel go to the US. Here's the question: what should Keir Starmer do about this, other than de nada, zero, zilch, nothing?
Well, look, there is a clear mantra or philosophy behind Donald Trump's tariffs. I know everyone's turning around and saying that, oh, tariffs are never good and tariffs are always awful. Actually, do you know what? Tariffs are sometimes good. And I'll tell you for one reason why they're good. In the 1990s, America made 70% of the world's aluminium. Today, which is one of the other measures getting targeted, today it makes 10%. Why? Because America banned the really, really polluting way of making aluminium.
Cheaply.
What happened? China came up with an even more polluting way of making aluminium, and it started making it for a third of the price, exporting it all over, and tens of thousands of Americans lost their jobs. But here's the thing: Canada, the UK, neither of us are in that category. So the message that Western politicians have to get to Donald Trump is, look, actually, we don't think you're mad. We do understand there's something you're going on about.
But tariff him, not us.
China, India, Brazil, some of these countries hugely polluting, getting rich off the back of our net zero stupidity. Those are the places
but
that
also
need to be hit with
paying very low wages. But one of the reasons, again, they've also got very low energy costs, so whatever energy they use, they'd still be able to do it more cheaply. There's the economies of scale, but there's also a trade-off, isn't there? You can have cheaper goods, but if no one's got a job left to pay for those cheaper goods, it doesn't really help. Yeah, it's interesting. We're going to be talking more about that later as well. Let's also talk about a new super party. This was spouted in the Sunday papers. I wonder where that story came from. Was it from Labour, Tories or Reform? We know that Reform, as the latest polls, has been topping Tories and Labour. A lot of Labour MPs, particularly in the Red Wall, very worried. Those voters who voted for Boris for the first time for Brexit to get that done in 2019, then went maybe back to Labour because they're angry with the Tories last year, now going, oh, good God, what did we do? Looking at Reform again. Nigel Farage riding high, very, I think, genuinely setting the agenda in a way that Kemi Badenoch at the Tory leadership is not. They've just topped 200,000 party members. Again, they're saying if anyone can come in and verify whether they're real members, it's not just bots, you know, they really are real members. People paying members of the party, that's a good, lucrative source of income. Tory membership dwindling by the day. Talk about a mega party. There's some talk that some of the right wing of the Tories want to bring in Boris Johnson, bring him back, get him a nice safe seat, if such a thing exists anymore. He comes back as the leader. They suggested Nigel Farage as Chancellor, which I thought was absurd, with all due respect to Nigel, and combine the right as the only way of basically ousting Labour at the next election. Reform immediately went, not a chance, we won't work with the Tories, and Boris Johnson is one of the reasons we're in such a mess already. And Tories, though, haven't kind of quite ruled it out. So what are the odds of this happening?
Well, they say about the Conservative Party that it's only ever had one consistent policy over the course of its existence, which is, on balance, it's in favour of them being in charge and the other guys not.
Getting elected. And they've been very successful at it for many, many decades, centuries even.
There is nothing so consistent in politics as charlatanesque cynicism. But look, we are now in a situation, and people will get fed up with me saying it, which is Keir Starmer can be as bad as he wants. He has
and he's doing that.
And boy, is he working hard at that. But he has found his people, and as long as he keeps those people happy, and as long as the right is divided, he will be walking into Downing Street next time, re-elected, with maybe not as big a majority, but more than enough of a majority to continue peddling his mad policies for as long as he wants. So look, I have no idea if a pact is going to happen or not, or indeed what form it might take. But I would say this: unless either that happens or one or other of the parties, Reform or Conservatives, win out, Keir Starmer will continue to govern as long as he wants.
A good majority of 100, if not. Who would be the leader? Loads of Tories don't like Nigel Farage. A lot of people, they're not impressed with Kemi Badenoch. You know, the man you helped in his campaign, Robert Jenrick, is he the man? Is he the man to inspire everybody? Who else?
Well, look, here is the thing. Boris Johnson riding as the king overseas, coming back.
I'd vote Labour. I'd vote Labour over that.
Would you
Seriously.
really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Keir Starmer.
100%. I would vote Keir Starmer.
He was even worse than Boris.
He's worse. Yeah, and just no, because he's a busted flush. Boris Wave, mass immigration, legal. He's a total betrayal of everything that he promised. All of the economic problems we've got right now, largely down to his lockdown decisions. Didn't do detail, lazy. Absolutely, just went for the easy option instead of doing the right thing by the country. And everyone goes, "Oh, we didn't really want a lockdown." That's even worse. He wasn't even a true believer. No, absolutely, the hypocrisy over lockdown and Partygate. Genuinely, that man steps into 10 Downing Street again over my dead body.
There we go.
There, Nadine Dorries, come on and discuss. What do you reckon? I mean, genuinely, anyone who thinks, as I tweeted yesterday, if you think that Boris Johnson is the answer, you're asking the wrong question. 11:24 is the time. Up next, take your calls, messages. Love to hear your thoughts on all the topics we're talking about. Get your messages on air. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, I was.
Yes, he asked everyone if he would like a coffee, except me. And I'm his biggest fan. Who's this?
I don't know. On a Monday at 1 p.m, Regent Street Cinema, the oldest cinema in the world, in North Regent Street, shows an old black and white movie. And they showed a very famous film called The Apartment with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. 1960 it was made.
Wow.
And I tend to book the second row, and all my friends turn up, and I offer them a coffee. Obviously, I missed someone.
And they're very upset.
Yeah.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong also still with me. Talking about, well, lots of different topics, an awful lot coming up, but also in particular about this crackdown on legal workers, legal migrants, at the same time as an Albanian criminal was genuinely allowed to stay in Britain after an immigration tribunal ruled it would be unduly harsh, in their words, because among the reasons given, his 10-year-old son would not eat foreign chicken nuggets. I kid you not. Let's get to some of your texts and tweets coming in on that. Yasmin says, immigration decisions shouldn't hinge on a kid's picky eating habits. Let's get real. There are bigger issues at stake here. Mike was, how would they know the chicken was foreign? Surely it makes no difference. Daniel says, still deport and send a monthly supply of the nuggets, cheaper than keeping them here. You see, this is the kind of thinking we get from our audience, you see, because they think around the problem. Like, that's the problem, you know. Amanda says, the people on the immigration tribunal should be removed from their posts. What amazes me, they're saying, well, the kid would be separated from his dad if he left and he stayed here. But they didn't seem to have a problem with his kid being separated from his dad when he was in prison for having 250 grand's worth of money, cash, you know, sitting around from ill-gotten gains. It's weird. Eventually, they're going to stop putting people in prison because the kids will be upset by that, aren't they? Peter says, I'm sure McDonald's uses the same nuggets everywhere. Peter, that's exactly my point. Apparently, we're going to be testing this a little later in the show. Timothy says, sorry, is it April the 1st? This can't be serious. Our country is a joke. Yeah, that tribunal ruling was in 2017, mate. No, 2017 he went to prison. Sorry, came out. Then there's been a review by tribunal since. Case is still ongoing. Again, convicted of a crime in 2017. Still here. Tabitha says the UK government is not fit for purpose. It doesn't help its own people. It's actively attacking its own with their own money. And Jane says we're not a serious country anymore, and it's very depressing. Hear to that. Let's go to the phone lines. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Chris has done that. He is in Epsom. Very good morning to you, Chris.
Morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Do you know, I love the fact I've got like a board full of calls and it's like, Chris, on chicken nuggets. How on earth are we having a conversation about chicken nuggets? That's how mad things are.
Let me tell you, I'm going to open your eyes to a few things. I feel broken this morning. I really do. This Albanian chap has been allowed to stay because of chicken nuggets. It's a load of rubbish because my girlfriend happens to be Albanian. Yeah. I get the hump because Albanians are portrayed all the time because of the few what's-its we've got over here. The Home Office won't even give her a tourist visa. I have to go to Europe to see her.
I hate to tell you that the majority of foreign criminals in UK prisons are Albanian, unfortunately. There's a very large criminal element to the people who are choosing to come over, and they're giving law-abiding Albanians a bad name, but nevertheless, the facts are the facts.
Yeah, no, that's a fact, Julia, but people don't understand that after Hoxha was when they had the civil war in '92, after they came out of being exactly the same as North Korea, there was no government, there was no support for anybody.
Yeah.
So they broke up into clans.
Yep.
And it became...
Organised crime is rife, yeah. But you know what? Not my problem.
No. Now, listen, I'm a member of the Free Speech Union. Yep. I believe vehemently and will vociferously defend your right to offend me.
Yep.
So much so that I pay £250 a year to be a member. I'm actually going to a debate on Wednesday night about free speech. I wouldn't want all of my WhatsApps being opened up, as many people would. That Labour politicians' WhatsApp messages were crass and in bad taste.
The Health Minister, Andrew Gwynn,
But then let's get it right, okay? He shouldn't be in public life if he's putting that out. That for me, as with Sam, it says you shouldn't be in public life. You don't have the right. You don't have the right mindset.
Yeah.
But look at this. You know, in last year, all right, and then 23, Russia jailed 400 people for putting hurty words on social media. We jailed 3,300. Right?
Wow.
It's serious, Julia.
It does rather depend on what people have actually said. I mean, look, people were jailed in Moscow, for just holding up a blank piece of paper, which they knew was a protest against the war in Ukraine. Chris, no, I'm with you. I just, I think people should lose their job because they're hypocrites and they're just untenable for them to work in government. But I don't, as a general rule, want people losing their jobs because of what they've written in private. And it is interesting that Tory MPs are going to be the subject in another paper, I believe, tomorrow.
That'll be interesting.
I think they could do anyone they want. Maybe everyone should just stop demanding that everyone loses their job, and then people wouldn't be at risk. Thank you for that, Chris. Appreciate 2 topics covered there. Carl is in Liverpool. Carl, you want to go back to chicken nuggets?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm getting quite hungry now. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, I'm lucky I've had my breakfast. I just find that for me, I would just end the argument with, well, we'll give them a year's supply where there you go, off you pop.
Yeah.
I don't get why this is such a complicated issue where everyone now has we should really feel angry at this because this is something that is so easy to solve, yet our government and judiciary are just absolute lame ducks.
Yep.
We're sat around waiting for them to do a job that they cannot do.
And they're just simply not doing it on the good for us. And again, a lot of this, we go, that's the law. It's not the law. It's interpretation of law. This whole you've got a human right to have everything you want. I mean, no, I'm sorry, you don't. They're just completely misinterpreting the law as far as I'm concerned.
And do you know what else, Julie? There's families where I live up north that they can't afford day-to-day living. That they're really struggling. Yeah, we're happy to give this guy since 2017 the option to stay based on poultry.
No, don't. It's terrifying. And again, lots of people go, "Oh, these stories aren't true." No, they literally are. Really appreciate your call, Carl. Thank you very much indeed, Sam Armstrong. We're going to go to a quick break, and we're going to come back to talk to Stephen Wolf. But if your thoughts on what the Chris and Carl had to say?
Yeah, foul. It's absolutely
foul. Any more puns? Bring them, keep them coming, folks. We'll squeeze them all into the coop. 11:34 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 11:36 is the time. Sam Armstrong still with me. Delighted to be joined now by Stephen Wolf. He's a former MEP and Director at the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Very good morning to you, Stephen.
Very good morning, Julia.
Do you have very strong views about chicken nuggets in different parts of the world? Because they seem to be the big subject today regarding an Albanian criminal's deportation, which was prevented by a tribunal, an immigration tribunal, in part, not solely, but in part, even though he was a convicted criminal, arrived here illegally, for some bizarre reason was given indefinite leave to stay and then British citizenship. I mean, that befuddles me. But one of his 3 children apparently won't eat foreign chicken nuggets. What do you make of it?
I know. I just find it absolutely astonishing, and I'm sure that almost every one of your listeners will be as shocked today that our immigration system, our tribunal system, has fallen so far that the interests of a child not being able to like chicken nuggets. I mean, I've got to admit, I can't stand chicken nuggets. I could not be paid to eat them in McDonald's anyway, but to even suggest that this is a human right, that you can't eat chicken nuggets in a foreign country and therefore can't be deported. I've got to believe, as a lawyer, as a barrister myself, that it can't be just about the chicken nuggets.
No, they were very clear. That wasn't the full reason. But the sole example provided to the court was in terms of the hardship for the 10-year-old son, one of 3 children of this man, with another Albanian woman. Was his sensitivity around food. Also apparently had an issue with socks, but there wasn't a psychologist that was trained who was brought in. Some trainee was brought in, and the neighbours said something. But either way, I mean, I don't care. I don't even care if the child is going to be separated from his father and that's terrible hardship, or he has to leave the country he's been growing up in, although apparently he speaks Albanian. We're not sure he speaks English. My thing is that's a problem that his dad imposed on the family. It's not my problem. It's a dad's problem. If you want to be a good father, here's an idea. Don't commit crimes that get you put behind bars and deported. I mean, that's what being a good dad would be. I would say that was pretty basic. That comes even before, read a bedtime story. Be there for your child. Walk them to school, maybe. But I think not getting deported because you're a criminal might be top of the list.
Yeah, he probably wanted to read him a story. Once upon a time, there was an Albanian chicken nugget. I don't know, but I'm with you on this. This is one of the points I've been raising about the Human Rights Act and the right to family life.
Yeah.
If you are a criminal, illegally arriving here, as we know this individual did, gave a false name, and then has gone on to commit crimes, that individual, that man, should be punished.
Yeah.
And the punishment should be the removal from him from this country.
Bye.
Every sane person believes in it.
It's so basic. I don't know what there's anything to discuss. But look, as you say, you're a barrister. The article, whatever it is in European Convention of Human Rights or any other way, none of this has changed in recent years. A lot of it is the interpretation, because they're worried about this kid being separated from his dad. Well, but they didn't worry about that when he was sent to prison. I mean, they seem to worry about women being separated from their kids when they go to prison. So apparently that's why women shouldn't go to prison. No, it's why women shouldn't commit crime, so they're not separated from their kids. But it's the lawyers' completely new interpretation of these things that is the issue, isn't it?
It is absolutely that. You start off with the European Courts for Human Rights saying there is a right to family life, and that was pretty narrowly defined. Then along comes a circumstance such as this, and the lawyers go, how do we keep this person here? And they push the envelope. Well, when the courts reject it in this country or in the rest of Europe, which they did many, many times, they elevated it to the European Court of Human Rights. And those judges, many of them are just professors, not really practicing lawyers in their own countries, then go, I have an agenda, I can extend it. And the beauty for the lawyers as a whole who push this human rights issue is that it then comes back into the nation states and our courts have to accept it. That means the next case, they can push the envelope again.
Yeah.
And that's why we get the circumstances where we have the ridiculous scenario now that one consideration of chicken nuggets, for example, is enough to push the balance of probabilities to enable the individual to stay.
It is utterly mind-blowing. I mean, I thought the whole point of things when they talk about chicken nuggets, we're always thinking McDonald's. My understanding was McDonald's, chicken nuggets, everything from these fast food giants, they taste the same everywhere in the world. That's kind of the point of them. Apparently not. I've been handed a document saying apparently McDonald's adjusts their menu to reflect local traditions and tastes in each country where they have restaurants, and they also respect cultural differences and develop menu items for each country. So that's that settled. I think we should test this out in the next half hour. So can someone pop to Albania, please, and bring us some chicken nuggets from Albania? We'll see the taste test. What do you make also? I mean, today, look, before the Trump tariffs, before the Labour WhatsApp messages and all of that came out, Labour's big story today on their grid, this grid they have at Number 10 was all going to be about, tackling foreign workers who are working here illegally, either arrived illegally on channel boats or behind in lorries, or has stayed over their visa. And the two sets of figures are out. One is this sort of 600, a record 600 foreign workers arrested in just 1 month. In the last month, as it tackled Britain's black economy, in just 7 months, they've had nearly 4,000 arrests. But both of these figures, they work out at 18 or 19 people a day. And that's just arrests. Whether actually anything comes of those arrests is something else. But given that people arrive on a much grander scale just on channel dinghies than that a day, let alone all the people who are overstaying visas, and no one in the country appears to know how many of them there are, but probably a couple of million, that's a drop in the ocean, isn't it?
Oh, it is absolutely a drop in the ocean. Look, I'm giving credit where credit's due. I'm absolutely delighted that actually we do have a Home Office that is actually beginning to identify the illegal criminality that's being spread across the countries. And as we know, these cases are going into barbershops, nail salons, where every individual I know is aware that these suddenly are going across the United Kingdom, and there's no doubt that they're correlated to crime. And the Albanian crime gangs have actually been caught. We saw the big case in Aberystwyth that linked all of these together with drugs and the way that they money launder through these organizations. So I'm pleased that they're doing it. But the reality is, unless we get as tough as Trump has done, unless we get the military and in their case, customs borders, but ours are border agencies, to be able to push people back in the way that Trump has done it, this will have no real major impact on the way or the structure of the people smuggling gangs.
And also, crucially, Trump-style deportations on a mass scale, but crucially, without a very long appeal process. Like, what's your excuse? You're here illegally, you're working illegally, you committed 2 crimes instantly. I mean, on that basis, you wouldn't be allowed to enter most countries. I don't understand what legs anyone has to stand on. And, if often these people have been refused asylum, or they're actually in the asylum process, and they're in that process knowing they'll be in that process for years and they can work on the black market. They're not all living in these little hostels on the British taxpayer for years. They're here to work. We know that. Are the authorities completely blind and the rest of us can see it?
I think the rest of us see it. I think the authorities are now just struggling tremendously because the numbers have come in just so quickly, so fast, and it's transforming the whole criminal network across the United Kingdom. We've had warnings from our own security services and our senior police officers about this. So they have to try and deal with it. But you're quite right. Here's the big problem. First of all, we've got to go through the criminal courts, and the courts are backed up. They're just overwhelmed at the moment. And even when you do get them convicted, we've just had an example today of what happens when we try to deport them. They'll appeal again using the European Court of Human Rights through first-tier tribunal. So they'll be here for decades before anything's done.
On that happy note. But that's the thing, it's just utterly tear out your hair despairing. It really, really is. Stephen Wolf, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Sam Armstrong, that's the thing. They go, we've had people arrested. I mean, that's more than's happened to the bloke who stole my bag on the 1st of June. He's still not even been arrested, for goodness sake. There's no charges being brought by. Hello, CPS. What are you up to this week? Do you fancy looking into that case? That's 8 months old. I mean, that doesn't mean that these people are going to be deported.
Yeah, look, like they say we're trying to stop migration. Julia, they know it's not working. This isn't going to work. They know it's not going to work.
I think they've smashed the gangs. If you read the memo, Sam, they've smashed the gangs.
They don't even believe that you will believe that it's going to work, right? This is the kind of thing. We have been gaslit by a political elite in this country, so much so that they simply don't even care if we believe it anymore. Yeah. They know that they are doing our country down. And I believe now that there are some politicians that are simply waiting for these illegal migrants to gain the vote. And indeed, this bloke who lied to get into the country, he'd have had the vote. They gave him citizenship.
I don't understand. How does that man get British citizenship? I mean, this is my thing. At this point, it must be deliberate. At this point, it must be deliberate. That's the accusation from Trump to the Democrats as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Please get in touch. 0344 499 1000. Up next, going to take a break, and then we're going to be just talking about the just the outrage of the latest hostage released by Hamas. 3 Israeli men, just incredibly gaunt. Frankly, they looked like they'd walked out of a concentration camp. Now it's emerged what they went through, but also the harrowing information that had to be given to one of those hostages about his family. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
This happened earlier in the week, actually. We found out that Valdo Calacane, who was the triple killer, just shocking this, was not forced to take his antipsychotic medication, in part, and I don't understand this, because he didn't like needles. This is according to a major review of the NHS care. There was a catalogue of failings identified by an independent report. It says the system got it wrong, as we know. He went on to kill Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates in June of 2023.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Well, we've been talking about chicken nuggets. We can have a bit of a joke, but I want to get really serious right now, because I have to say I am still, on Monday, incandescent with rage, outrage and horror at what I saw on Saturday, when we saw the release of the latest set of Hamas hostages, 3 Israeli men who released. And this time, none of those, you know, the Owen Jowins types could say, oh, well, they look absolutely fine. They've obviously been well looked after by their Hamas hostage takers. This time, we saw the grisly, grisly image of 3 men, gaunt, hollow-eyed, barely able to walk, being basically put up on stage, surrounded by men with balaclavas and guns, paraded before screaming hordes of innocent Palestinian civilians, forced to give statements to on camera to quasi-pretend journalists from Gaza before they were handed over to the Red Cross in a bizarre signing ceremony. And one of the most outrageous and awful things about this is not only has it emerged that these men were starved, for months and months on end in their 491 days in captivity. They were also beaten, tortured, one unable to stand up to walk, had to learn to walk in recent weeks before his release. But that two of the men have lost, well, one man lost his wife. He did not know until that moment that for sure that she was dead and was released. One of the men was outrageously, this is Israeli hostage Eli Sharabi, he was forced to give a statement in which he said he was looking forward to seeing his wife and two daughters, even though Hamas knew that they were already dead because they had murdered them on the day that they took him hostage. It was only when he got into the hands of the IDF and his family that he was able to find out that his wife and two daughters were dead. Let's talk to Natasha Hausdorff about this. She's a barrister. She's legal director at UK Lawyers for Israel. Natasha, I didn't think Hamas could sink to any lower depths than they've already done, but yeah, they managed it. What did you make of this?
I can't say that I'm surprised, Julia, but that's because, like many others, I've certainly followed Hamas, their atrocities against their own people and against Israelis, and the information that we've been having in dribs and drabs coming out of those who've been released, who've been rescued from Hamas captivity. Those stories ultimately have been emerging over time as those recovered hostages have had the opportunity to become comfortable perhaps with giving that testimony. But you're absolutely right. Eli Sharabi lost his wife and daughters, the three of them British citizens, on the 7th of October. And I think we cannot overlook the brutal treatment of so many of the hostages and the fact that so many have been murdered in Hamas captivity. Every one that Israel is able to recover should, of course, be celebrated. But the very tragic circumstances and the state of these hostages coming out is a reflection of the way that they have been tortured.
It was quite something. But again and again, we've had the people, who march on a Saturday every other week in London defending what basically is a terrorist organisation. They claim they're for the Palestinian people. They're just defending Hamas in reality. They've been saying, oh, well, especially the 4 young women who released former soldiers. Oh, well, they look pretty healthy. Well, one of them's quite overweight. She must be fine. We know that those women were systematically starved, given a pita bread a day for months and months on end, and then basically fattened up near the end so they appeared okay when they left. They didn't bother with these 4 men. They left in the most incredible emaciated state. We think, long-term damage, one barely able to walk. And it wasn't just Eli Sharabi who found out about losing his wife and children. Apparently he asked, where are my wife and daughters? Why aren't they here? And the news had to be broken to him just moments after he was forced to say he was looking forward to see them by these evil, sadistic torturers. But there was also Or Levy. He didn't know for sure if his wife was dead or alive. Einav was his wife. But he did get to see his son for the very first time. His son is now 3 years old, this little Almog. He was, his dad, so he's lost his mum. His dad had been taken captive for 16 months. And his dad said, his little boy said to him, you've been away a long time. Yeah. I mean, it just utterly heartbreaking. The third man was welcomed back by his wife and family. It is absolutely harrowing to watch this. And yet again, these disgusting displays, with everyone with their guns and their balaclavas and a big, a big sign, and they sort of legitimising it by having the Red Cross, International Red Cross, sign these documents. And yet so few of the human rights agencies, the ones who seem to care about the crimes against humanity, they seem remarkably unbothered about the state of these men. Clearly, they've been starved and beaten and tortured.
Well, you raise a very important point. The International Committee of the Red Cross abjectly failed in every responsibility they had to these hostages. They refused even to attempt to convey medication. And here we have seen, week after week, the Red Cross members engaged in this utter farce, this circus that you have described, I would argue in breach of their fundamental principles, their founding principles of neutrality, to engage in handshaking with members of this barbaric, internationally prescribed...
Signing certificates of departure.
signing Mickey Mouse documents. There's no business that the International Committee of the Red Cross has to be signing anything with this internationally prescribed terrorist organisation. The brokers of this agreement, those that have been involved, other states like Egypt, Qatar, could easily have facilitated these exchanges. But of course, Hamas is using both the release of hundreds of prisoners, many of them with blood on their hands, as well as this circus of these releases week after week to entrench its PR propaganda machine and to seek to engage in the kind of discourse that lends it credibility and international legitimacy. And it's not just Al Jazeera that is playing along with this game. Unfortunately, we see this kind of appalling equivalence being drawn, this sort of both sides logic being applied also by the BBC.
We're worried about we're concerned about the condition of these people, but also of the prisoners. As if it's the same thing.
Laura Kuenssberg's interview with the President of Israel was utterly shameful, where she sought to draw those sorts of parallels and comparisons. He was having none of it, and President Herzog answered very flatly that this was entirely false. But it is part and parcel of the propaganda machine that we have seen spring into action when Hamas saw the world's understandable utter disgust at the condition in which these three Israeli men were released. They started very quickly to put out false messaging about supposed prisoners that had been released and mistreated in Israeli prisons, and that false information is unfortunately being picked up by the media.
Oh, I've been sent hundreds of people sending me a picture of one prisoner who'd been released. Again, the question marks about whether he had actually been on this release list, but he was a man who's known to he's being treated for cancer, which is the reason they go, well, this man's just as gaunt and emaciated. No, that's because he's being treated for cancer in an Israeli hospital.
So unfortunately, the misinformation that feeds into that kind of both sides false logic persists, and this will undoubtedly have devastating consequences for the future. It simply encourages Hamas to continue to attempt to kidnap Israelis in future and to return pretty swiftly to their terrorist activities.
I mean, there's a big question mark now. The second phase negotiations have started for that. We've still got dozens of hostages still being held captive who believed to still be alive. We're still hoping against hope that the baby and toddler, the Bibas family, are still alive. And again, hope is dwindling there. But also the urgency now of getting those hostages out, knowing what state many of them are being kept in. And we know a lot of the information about how people are being kept is being kept under wraps for fear of upsetting families, for fear of doing anything to stop any more releases. But I think in the fullness of time, the horror will be emerging. And I know the same people who've defended October the 7th again and again and gone these marches will still, for some reason, find reasons to claim it's not real, it didn't happen, or well, they're both as bad as each other. And it is utterly abhorrent that this is happening. Natasha Halsdorf, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to get Sam Armstrong's thought on this one. I know you want to talk about this, and we'll get more time. And we're also going to be talking to Damien Green, a former Home Office Minister, about the madness of this Albanian being allowed to stay in the country because of chicken nuggets. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you so much for joining me. Whether you are listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, on your connected device, it is great to have at your company. Now, we are Talk, the Home of Common Sense. So a lot of common sense coming up. We are going to be talking about the Labour WhatsApp group and Andrew Gwynn, the Health Minister. He's been sacked. He's not a Labour-whipped MP anymore. He's left the party. Now, another Labour MP, Oliver Ryan, has been named as an MP. Apparently, tomorrow it's the Tories who, at one of their WhatsApp groups, that's going to be a bit of a problem. I've been told, it's going to be quite bad. But do we want people really losing their jobs for private WhatsApp conversation, or does it reveal really what people think? We'll talk about that in a few moments. Also, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, saying he will declare war on NHS wokery and nonsense. Well, that's all very well. I mean, Tories should have had many years to have done that. It all happened under their watch. But are they learning some lessons from Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump has announced a 25% import tax overnight on all steel and aluminium entering the US. It's going to have the biggest impact on Canada, but it's also going to impact us. That's where 10% of our steel goes. All of that coming up, plenty more besides, lots more on that Albanian criminal able to stay in the country because his son likes chicken McNuggets here but not abroad, apparently. Genuinely, this was used in the tribunal as one of the reasons. Sam Armstrong is still with me. A very good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us. I wasn't planning to do this hour, but we didn't have time to get to you a conversation we've just had about the Israeli hostages being released on Saturday, the emaciated condition. I mean, lots of people saying, normally, when we've seen, say, the young women being released and people are like, oh, thank God, and crowds cheering in Tel Aviv. But the looks of horror on people's faces when they saw the condition of these men, they did look like they'd just come out of a concentration camp. They really did. It was absolutely foul. And when you see the pictures of what they looked like when they were taken captive, so different. We now know the horrific conditions they were kept in for 491 days. They were in Hamas tunnels the entire time. They were basically starved. They were beaten, tortured, starved. Routinely, they'd have one pita bread, like a rotten pita bread, between three of them. They were held sometimes with other people. They would have to share it. They are damaged beyond belief. But the worst bit of torture was at the very end, when one of the hostages, Eli Sherebi, was told basically had to read a statement in front of this screaming, baying mob, surrounded by men in balaclavas with guns, and say he was looking forward to getting home, seeing his family, his wife and children, even though Hamas had murdered them 491 days ago on October the 7th, and they knew that, and he didn't find out until he got to Israeli territory. It's just heartbreaking, and yet there are so many people still saying, yeah, but on the other hand, Israel, war crimes, genocide.
These scenes were every bit like 1945. This was like witnessing a concentration camp in Nazi Germany being emptied out. And do you know what? After that, we said never again. And what's more, we took those men that was responsible and anyone who collaborated. And by the way, there were plenty of women there. There were plenty of younger people there, all of whom had shiny new smartphones.
Oh, didn't they?
And Hamas didn't look so starved there, right? They all had shiny new guns, and they were going on and they were filming and they were goading and they were cheering. So don't talk to me about Palestinian civilians. There is widespread complicity. But after the Second World War, we said everybody involved, we are going to bring to court, bring to justice, and we hanged the men responsible. British hangmen went out and hanged those responsible for crimes against Jews. What are we going to do instead this time? Well, this year we are sending £129 million of taxpayers' money earned by British carpenters and plumbers and taxi drivers all over this country, is going to get sent to pay these men through unrefunding for the abhorrent things that they did. This is an organisation that pays money on the basis of how many people, of how many Jews you kill.
They literally reward the families of people who are suicide bombers who kill Jews.
You know what? Not another penny, unless you're going to take every single penny, you're going to put it into construction workers to dig a hole, to build it in the middle of Gaza so deep that the light cannot reach. And every one of these animals, every one of these pigs, every one of these dogs should be cast down into the abyss where no light, no freedom, no happiness, no joy can reach them. Because if you are prepared to take a man who you have just spent months in fact over a year, starving near to death, and to goad him before you set him free under penalty of the fact that you were going to be bombed unless you did it. And do you know what you say to him before you do it? Aren't you looking forward to seeing the daughters and the wife that we murdered? You are not fit to inhabit the same earth that I live on.
It is so just beyond awful and cruel. And again, just doesn't get called out. It just doesn't, by the same people who are just wagging fingers about anything that some Israeli minister has done. I don't think everything Israel does is great. I don't think everything they do is fine. And they've got issue with the settlements. There have definitely been, there'll be some atrocities that have been committed, and that's awful. But bearing in mind, you know, people get prosecuted. The Israeli courts do deal with these issues. No country is perfect. Our country will have committed atrocities. So will the Americans, all our allies. But Hamas do this by design. It's literally the purpose. I just find it absolutely extraordinary. And the urgency now of getting the rest of the hostages home. And also, again, Israel, I think it's got to be really clear. We cannot have the International Red Cross playing along with all this nonsense. You bring them out in a car and they're handed over to the Red Cross. The Red Cross drives to the IDF. No one else there. This is all stage managed. They've got to not be allowed to carry on with this. Or we just don't release your prisoners. End of. You want your prisoners back. You want your mass murderers and your terrorists back. I mean, I don't think Israel should be paying that ransom personally, but I can see the urgency now of getting those Israeli hostages out. I'm just still hoping against hope those children are still alive. 12:08 is the time. I really appreciate you joining us, and I know you and I feel so strongly about this, as do many others. I think it's probably the one place you can come in the British media where you can find people who do feel strongly about this. That's the bloody terrifying thing in this country. We're asking about an Albanian criminal who was allowed to stay in Britain after an immigration tribunal ruled it would be unduly harsh, among reasons why they couldn't send him home, because his son is 10 years old and won't eat foreign chicken nuggets. How they know that? Who knows? What is your reaction to that? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can send us a message on X at talkTV. Lots of those coming in. And don't forget that your calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Let's go straight to my first guest in this hour now. He's Damien Green. He's a former Conservative Cabinet Minister, was Deputy Prime Minister under Theresa May, and joins us now. A very good afternoon to you, Damien.
Hi, Julia.
Hello. What do you make of this story? I mean, we've gone through the story repeatedly, people on the show. Albanian, arrived here at the age of 15, illegally, claimed he was from Yugoslavia, he wasn't. He ends up, bizarrely, being given indefinite leave to stay, even British citizenship. Why, we have to wonder. And then he gets to be found with 250 grand in cash, as you do, ill-gotten gains, gets sent to prison, and now they want to deport him. And basically a tribunal said, turns out among the reasons why it would be against his personal human rights is because he's got 3 kids here with another Albanian woman, and one of the kids is a bit fussy about food and a few issues, and it'd be too distressing for him. How on earth is that happening in this country?
It is extraordinary. So, I mean, I know that was only one of the reasons, but that a judge would entertain that as a reason, I find absurd. I share your disbelief, to put it no higher than that, that this goes on. And, I don't normally have kind things to say about the government, but to be fair to them, they have appealed this decision, and I hope that a higher court will reverse it.
But isn't the issue the courts? The issue is the lawyers and the judges and the tribunals, their interpretation, because that is not what was meant by human rights.
No, it's specifically interesting that we talk about this right to a family life, and it's always used in conjunction with the European Convention on Human Rights. But actually, if you have a right to a family life, the courts don't take that into account when they're sending people to prison for serious crimes in this country that they have nothing to do with European courts. So I don't understand why the immigration tribunals appears to have a different.
I don't understand why it's relevant. But again, you don't have a right. You don't have an inalienable right to a family life. And the formative of your right to a family life is that the government can't just willy-nilly separate you and your family. There used to be a good reason. No. Well, here's the reason: you're a lying, deceitful criminal. I mean, so that's the reason. But this is a problem. If we are not going to deal with the courts and the people making these decisions, then we're never going to resolve this.
Well, when you say deal with the courts, and the way you deal with the courts is to pass laws that are properly enforceable. And you make the point that this wretched man had got indefinite leave to remain after 5 years. And indeed, one of the suggestions Kemi Badenoch made this week was that we should extend that period. So you have to be here for 10 years. And that seems to me to be perfectly sensible.
But also there should be some more bare minimum requirements. I mean, are you a boon to the country economically, culturally? Are you fully integrated? I don't mind the odd parking ticket, but that's about it. Otherwise, are you a net contributor? I don't understand why we're offering British citizenship to some kid who arrived here illegally at the age of 15.
Yeah, well, and indeed, that's part of the proposals, and the other half, you're right. That the Conservative proposals are that if you've lived for a long period on benefits, if you're not making a contribution, then you can't become a British citizen. That this is a home, not a hotel, is the phrase being used, which I think is quite sensible, and we've got to be tougher on that. But there is, before that, another point about that it may be training of immigration judges, and it may be the way the Home Office puts the case. One of the things that certainly used to happen was that too many of these cases, there weren't Home Office lawyers there arguing the other side.
So you're not represented, then okay.
Exactly, you tend to lose the case. And I remember it was one of the things we're going back 14, 15 years when I was immigration minister. But in those days, I had a big blitz on this because the Home Office were turning up at a pathetically small percentage of these cases. And we increased that. And you know what? The more often you argue your case in court, the more often you're successsul.
Yeah, funny that. I know. What about
Yeah.
what about this rounding up? We're hearing of foreign workers, illegal workers, the black market. Record 600 arrested in 1 month, we're told, and 4,000 over 7 months. But again, it works out as 18 or 19 a day. A drop in the ocean compared to the number of illegal migrants arriving every single day in this country by boat, ignoring the many more who were arriving here legally or by hook or by crook, and then staying on past their visa, past their supposed holiday and the like. I mean, this is off the scale, this illegal working in this country. How did it get so out of hand? I mean, do you think that Labour will get to grips with it, given that your lot, the Tories, totally failed to? I mean, you worked as Deputy Prime Minister for Theresa May. She was supposed to be, hard as nails, Tory Prime Minister and Tory Home Secretary, but nothing seems to be done to actually deal with this issue.
Well, I mean, I think you need to look at the different bits of the 14 years of Conservative government. That actually the huge wave of immigration has happened post-Brexit, and indeed, Theresa was a very tough Home Secretary, and I was happy to work for her, doing tough things, closing down bogus colleges, putting X-ray machines so that people couldn't come across in the backs of lorries anymore. But there are always new ways that criminals will find to evade the law. And you're right, the majority of people who are here without the right to be here have overstayed a visa. And it's always seemed to me the answer to that is to make sure that employers get punished if they employ people who don't have the appropriate qualifications, in this case, the right to live and work.
I mean, this is so basic. I mean, again, there are punishments, but how often do people actually get punished? Clearly, people commit these crimes. It's like shoplifting, isn't it? Or why do people shoplift when there's this punishment of X or Y? Well, the odds are you're not going to be caught, you're not going to be arrested, you're not going to be charged, you're not actually going to be sent to, you're actually going to end up in court, you're not actually going to end up in prison. The fine, you're not going to pay the fine anyway, no one's going to do anything about it. You get a free-for-all. I'm assuming that the reason why an awful lot of these people, of these businesses do hire these people is because no one ever does anything about it. And everyone knows, but everyone shrugs. I mean, if the police and the immigration authorities knew who to raid in the last month, I'm assuming that information didn't just come in 2 months ago. They would have known all along. That's dodgy, that place is dodgy, that takeaway is dodgy, that nail bar, that car wash, and they just walk by it and don't do anything. They could arrest them every single day.
Yeah, to some extent, it is a question of where the police choose to devote their resources and therefore what kind of guidance they're getting.
Yeah.
And you can always do more. And it is true that there are certain sectors where you are more likely to get people working.
It's more cash in hand, so it's easier.
Yeah, all of that, and a fairly transient working population. That in sort of office blocks in big cities, where people are doing jobs for years and years, then those sorts of companies, big companies, will tend not to, not to want to bend the rules for obvious reasons. They have reputational damage that could happen to them. But so it is a question of if you like, sheer grunt work, of actually the amount of resources, the amount of time and people you're prepared to put to this. And I should say, the government is making a big play over how they've deported more people in the past 6 months than that had happened in the previous 6 months. But nevertheless, the numbers are still less than they were 15 years ago. When I remember doing this sort of thing, where people did get regularly deported, and this wasn't such a big issue.
But we wouldn't have to. Here's the thing: we wouldn't have to deport people if we caught them first. If we didn't let we didn't let them in, or this bloke's been here on a 3-month tourist visa and he hasn't left the country because we have no record of this. We don't check. Right, where is he? Let's go and find him.
Well, given the amount of information you get when people leave the country now, the forms we all have to fill in to, as it were, take a plane out of the country. It's not beyond the wit of man in a digital era to know who's left the country and who hasn't left the country. And you may not know their last known address, but you can make a guess if they've come here. And it's not often on tourist visas. It's often on student visas and so on. So you know which areas they're operating in.
Again, it's all about the will, if you ask me. Now, look, time's against us. I want to ask you about 2 other stories briefly, if we can. Lots of talk at the weekend about a possible mega right-wing party, right-wing Tories and the Reform Party amalgamating. Talk of Boris Johnson as the potential leader of that party, back in number 10 over my dead body. But there's been poo-pooed completely by Reform. Not a chance, says Reform. We wouldn't work with Boris Johnson, but also wouldn't work with the Tories. The Tories seem to be leaving it open. You're a Conservative.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Nigel Huddleston, who's the party chairman, has ruled it out.
Not going to happen.
Very specifically, and it's not going to.
We dealt with that quickly. With that case, on that basis, Reform and Tories both do well. Labour are going to be back in the next election, no matter how badly they do, and they're doing badly.
They are, but I think it's madness to think to start predicting the next election on the basis of opinion polls.
Okay, fair enough.
Out from it.
Also, just finally, you're an MP. Well, you're an MP who was senior level for years. WhatsApps have brought down Andrew Gwynn. He was in a WhatsApp group. Other Labour MPs and Labour councillors. Another Labour MP, 29-year-old, career probably over before he starts. Apparently tomorrow, Tory MPs are going to be the subject of some stories about what's in their WhatsApp groups. How worried should they be?
It depends what people have said, and I know very specifically the WhatsApp group that people are referring to. It's the Tory MPs 2019 to 2024, of which therefore I'm a member. So I haven't heard anything from the newspaper involved. So I think I have obeyed my own instruction, which is never put anything on a WhatsApp group that you wouldn't be prepared to say, on talkTV or something like that, because if there are hundreds of people on a WhatsApp group, then can you trust all of them all of the time, or they don't leave their phone lying around, or their staff get it? So I think it's a lesson to all politicians that if you want to say things in private, keep them private and don't write them down.
Very good advice. We need to pass that to some more people. Damien Green, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, thank you very much for joining us. I was Sam Armstrong listening to that.
Yeah, well, but over the last 24 hours, we've seen Conservative MPs, very senior Conservative MPs, that would have been in precisely that WhatsApp group lecturing Labour about what's in theirs, while knowing all along that they had said or been in a group in which similar things are said. The truth is, they're all at it. Just don't be hypocritical about it.
Just stop wagging your finger at those people. I mean, I'm genuinely, I'm just like, I don't want people losing their jobs for what they say in a private joke. By the way, we've been talking a lot about chicken nuggets, and I'm going to get to your calls up next after a break. 0344 499 1000. I made the point earlier. I thought, this is about the Albanian criminal's 10-year-old. I thought the whole point of things like your McDonald's chicken nuggets, I'm sure other chicken nuggets are available. I just don't know where. So you always think of McDonald's, don't you? I thought the whole point was they tasted the same around the world, and that's literally their point. Apparently they adjust their menu to reflect local traditions and tastes in each country where they have restaurants. They also respect cultural differences and develop menu items for each country. We can't test it out properly because we don't have access to Albanian chicken nuggets right now. However, the team generously have bought some chicken nuggets for us to try in the studio. Interestingly, sorry about the crackling, they chose to buy, for us to do a quick taste test, 20 chicken McNuggets, so I'm guessing they're rather hoping they get some themselves. I've got some dips, I've got the works. Would you like to taste the chicken? I don't think you're a chicken nugget man, are you?
Well, you know, I wouldn't mind being deported quite as much maybe as an Albanian 10-year-old.
I'd quite like to go to Albania. If I agree to eat chicken nuggets in Albania, can I get a free flight? Should we have a little...
There we go.
Cheers. I mean, they're a bit cold now.
Chewy.
They're quite nice.
What?
I mean, I don't think it's worth necessarily staying in the country for.
I don't know how they're going to taste that different overseas, if I'm honest.
I'm not sure they taste of chicken. I'm not going to lie. Right, the boys are going to be so pleased there's that many left. I just don't think eating and radio go very well together. I'm not going to lie. Genuinely, I've got to be honest with you, I'm a quarter pounder with cheese girl when it comes to Mucky D's. Do it properly. Do it properly.
Big Mac all the way.
Big Mac, I see. Let's get in touch. Genuinely though, the madness of this chicken nugget story. It's mad, and yet it's completely true. And it's the madness that I think gets you in the end. I'm going to try and finish my chicken nugget.
Finger licking ridiculous.
I thought you were saying something terrible there. It's 12:23 is the time. We're going to take a break. I'm going to continue checking on my chicken nugget, and we're going to get to your calls. And if you can pop near the office, we've got some, medium cold chicken nuggets and some dips for you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. We will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's get to more of your calls coming in thick and fast about this absurd situation of an Albanian foreign national committed a criminal act, went to jail. Well, he was sentenced to 2 years, whether he served 2 years. Could we be kidding? They can't deport him at the moment because the tribunal has ruled that because of his family right to a family life and his 10-year-old son apparently not liking foreign food. What are the reasons given for him not to be deported? There is an appeal ongoing, but bearing in mind this guy's been in this country since he was 15 years old. He is no longer 15 years old, and yet he's still here. Let's get your phone lines. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. David is in North London. Good afternoon to you, David.
Good afternoon, Julia. Lovely to speak to you.
Lovely to speak to you.
This raises an interesting point because it was, or is, a Labour mayor, so therefore the Labour Party, who have banned junk food ads on advertising. So surely, if they are not deporting this person because of this reason, they're actually actively harming him by their logic.
Oh, I'm loving your work.
So he doesn't eat chicken nuggets. And also, if I could add, legal cases like this all act on like precedent. You know, this case, this versus that, etc. Does this mean that if I to be deported for whatever reason because I'm from whatever country, and I say, look, I identify as a child that doesn't like chicken nuggets from anywhere else, they won't deport me?
Yeah, I mean, but yes, it would appear so. This is the madness. But again, it's about this mad interpretation of people's right to a family life. And again, unless the government can't just randomly just stop you living with your family unless there's I mean, well, don't commit crimes then if you don't want to be sent. I don't care whether his kid's got a right to live here or not. I don't think his kid should have a right to live here. I think he should take his whole family home with him and be rid of the lot of them. But if his family is going to be split up, that's his doing, not ours, not our problem.
Absolutely, it is. But I think the bigger point is Keir Starmer said when he was on the steps of Downing Street, he's going to tread more lightly on our lives or get out of our lives. This is very much not the case because obviously he's so involved in our lives he even cares about our dietary choices. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I totally with you. I have to say, that chicken minnow, I'm not going to lie, there were a couple more others. I'm not convinced by them, but they were quite cold by now. That may not be their best presentation, shall we say. Thank you very much indeed for that, David. Got another David. Got Dave on the line. He's in Essex. Hello, Dave.
Good afternoon, Julia. Great show as always.
Thank you very much. A brace of Daves today.
I'd just like to make a point, Julia, that I feel my personal feelings is that the politicians of all stripes are misleading the public because they know full well that they are bound by historic conventions. If I can give you an example, the 1951 United Nations Convention on Refugees states quite clearly that these people have every right to get here. If they can reach the country, they're allowed to travel overland and they are allowed to choose their country.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the first safe country. Yeah.
And the 1967 protocol enforces this. So when they say, "Oh, it's all about the European Court," it's not really. And I heard you mention earlier Donald Trump. He's cracked down on the immigration, but if you read the small print of his actions, he's withdrawn from the United Nations Convention on Refugees, and I think this is where the problem lies.
Yeah, I think we need to get out of a lot of these international organisations because again, it's all been distorted from where it was, but also the world is different now. Everybody's got a smartphone. They can see an alternative life. They can travel across a continent or across the world. It's a completely different time. It is just madness for us to carry on with the same system. And again, I always say, and I've said this to many Labour politicians, indeed the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, long before she was actually a Home Secretary, okay, so all these people can come here and claim they've got a right to a better life. How many of them are we going to take? Where's your line? Is it 10,000, 100,000, a million? 10 million? How many are we going to take? We can't fit them all.
I think the problem really lies in these historic treaties that should be revisited because they're being abused, Julia.
Yeah, but again, the lawyers who basically run the government now and run everything in this country now, they love this. Of course, they're all making money from it as well. Dave, great call. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. He knows more about this, Sam, than most Labour MPs do, doesn't he?
Well, he has that great qualification for being able to commentate on this issue, which is not being in Westminster.
Yep.
This makes sense to everybody up and down the country other than in Westminster. And look, the idea that you have to get out of these treaties isn't mad, right? The vast majority...
Or immoral.
The vast majority of the British public would back it. But it seems to be that Tory MPs, and we had Damien Green on earlier, who's definitely from that sort of more One Nation Republican wing of the
things,
Conservative Party. They would consider it mad, insane to even suggest, to even countenance it. But no, what Donald Trump is proving in America is, if you're prepared to say, look, no matter what it takes, I'm going to get this done because people are sick to the back teeth of it, public will back you.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to be talking to a former White House official about what Donald Trump is doing very soon. Right now, though, it is time to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning £25,000.
It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Good luck, everybody, going for that. Now, we're going to take a quick break. Coming up, we're going to be talking about Wes Streeting saying he's going to declare war on NHS wokery. We'll see. Will that actually work? This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much for joining me. Sam Armstrong's still with me. I'll get his thoughts on what our next guest has to say in a moment. Health Secretary Wes Streeting, always in the news for something or other. He has said he's going to declare war on NHS wokery and nonsense. This, as by the way, while the NHS chairman has branded parts of the NHS unsafe. But Wes Streeting said the health service got to stop doing daft nonsense, like erasing the word woman from many NHS documents, and staff tweeting about their job involving anti-whiteness. He says the NHS can't afford to be distracted by ideologues. And writing in The Sun on Sunday, he said, I've told the NHS to get back to basics. I mean, all great news, but is it going to happen? Let's talk to Roy Lilly. He's a former NHS Trust chairman. And Roy, I would absolutely trust you to get the NHS back to basics. You're very sensible on all this stuff. Do you trust that the Health Secretary is A, means what he says, and B, crucially, can actually do it?
Well, no.
Oh, well, that solves that then.
Very much. Let's move on to the next topic. Look,
if more politicians answered like that, we'd get somewhere.
Well, you wouldn't have much of a programme, would you? Let's try and fluff this up a bit to fill up the gap between the adverts.
We've got plenty more to talk about, Roy, I can assure you.
Okay,
Carry on.
Leave me out of it. I don't care. Listen, the issue here is it's the Equalities Act 2000, where there are 9 specific protected people and conditions and what have you. And I'm not going to go through all 9 of them now. But what is unusual about this legislation and what people overlook is that that was in 2010. In 2011, they introduced regulations which have the force of law to oblige public authorities to enforce it and demonstrate how they've enforced it. So most laws, you say, okay, I've complied with it, the clean air or the health and safety, the cooking, catering, canteen or whatever. Here, this is the law, and this is another law to make you enforce it. And if I was running a hospital employing 10,000 people, you know what? I'd say, find me somebody to come and enforce this lot and get on with it and make sure I don't end up in the courts. So that's his problem.
So that's what you've got. So people have to sort of have these training courses that waste everyone's time, and they've got to talk about this stuff and put up posters and send emails and all that nonsense. Yeah, they have to do it. But I mean, is it just the public sector, or is it just the public sector, or is it the private sector as well?
No, it's the public sector and people who provide services to the public sector.
Which is an awful lot of private contractors.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a building company or a catering company or what have you. And the interesting thing is, of course, it's 2010. It's Gordon Brown who introduced this. This is Labour legislation. Now, if Streeting wants to pare it back, you've got to say which bit of the law, Wes, shall we not comply with? And you can't do that. You can't be a little bit compliant. You can't be a little bit...
But hold on a minute. But look, the Equalities Act is about, women not losing their jobs or not getting jobs or being treated differently because they are women, or gay people, or someone's got a disability, where that disability is not relevant to the job. Whether you're black, whether you're, you're Asian or whatever. That's, I mean, God, we all support that, don't we? We want people hired on merit and treated on merit and treated equally. But you could change it so that you complied with that. So you're not going, we're only hiring white people, or we're only hiring gay people. But without having to sort of have 15 documents and a lot of women in big jewellery in HR, they all look the same. Basically, running these utterly pointless courses and making everyone have to fill in these nonsense online questionnaires about how would you handle it if someone who was trans spoke to you in the office. That's what people have to do. It's madness. That's a waste of everyone's time.
I agree. And it actually says under these regulations, public sector bodies must publish equality information at least annually. They must publish information showing how they're meeting the public sector equality duty. They have to provide data on employees and service users to demonstrate compliance. It's in the legislation. If he wants to change it, it's Labour legislation. Good luck. Change the law. Leave me out of it.
But also, we know, I mean, look, the government doesn't appear to be able to get the NHS to do anything they want. Look, the Home Office couldn't get the College of Policing, paid for by taxes, to stop doing all this wokery in training police officers. So God knows they're not going to get it out the NHS. I have to say, I mean, one of the things that Wes Streeting mentioned is raising the word woman from NHS documents. If you don't say women, you need to come for your cervical smear, or women, you might have problems when you're pregnant with this or whatever that. If you don't address it to women, people often don't know what you're talking about, for goodness sake. How many women know exactly what their cervix is, for goodness sake?
There's a lot of folklore around this and a lot of tropes. I mean, I'm quite sure that there have been people who've seen this legislation, zealots, and they just sort of go berserk with trying to implement it, and then need right back. No question about that. And frankly, as somebody who used to run a hospital, if somebody said to me, I'll give you one less thing to do, Roy, I'd say, brilliant, please go ahead. But I mean, Streeting's got to be careful. He's also now, I think he's going to interfere somewhere or other along the line with transgender policies as well, which of course are part of this act. So look, we know what this is. Labour are behind in the polls. Reform are running rings around them. You don't have to be a political scientist to see what's going on here. Let's be tough. Streeting wants to be the leader of the Labour Party. Starmer's on a downward trajectory. you can see what's happening.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, you mentioned the transgender things. Very good news that Labour is shelving plans to make changing your gender officially on a form, although you can't actually. I mean, again, when I grew up, gender and sex were the same thing. What you think you are on a Wednesday afternoon is totally irrelevant to what you actually are, what you're born and what you die as. But making it hard, not making it easier for people to basically, literally at the age of 16, just go, oh yeah, it turns out I think I'm a woman, so I'm a woman. I mean, that's good news at least. That means they may have got the message that this isn't popular with voters.
No, exactly. And it's picking up on those themes that are popular with voters that Reform, may I say, has actually been very good at. And you can see that they're romping ahead in the polls. Labour are having a panic attack, and Streeting's thinking, well, if I am going to run the Labour Party, I've got to be tough too.
Yeah, exactly. And again, show that you're one of the sane ones. But again, if you can't actually do it, if the government doesn't have the ability to stop these things when it's entirely taxpayers' money paying for all this stuff, something is rotten at the core. Roy Lilly, former NHS Trust Chair, thank you very much indeed. I love that. Always straight talking from Roy. I want to come back to the trans issue with you, Sam Armstrong, because it's something we talked a lot about. But when it comes to the ability, of the government to actually stop the mad wokery, the rainbow lanyard madness, which, by the way, is all over the private sector as well. We've seen it. We talked about it many, many times. It can't stop at the college policing. I don't believe for a moment they're going to be able to stop it in the NHS or in schools. There isn't really a will. They're completely signed up to this madness, most of them really, wink, wink, wink. Wes Streeting, I think, is saying he hasn't got a cat's chance of doing this, though.
No, and Roy's right, actually. It does go back to old pieces of legislation. I mean, you said in that interview that the Equality Act just says that, everyone's meant to be equal, and that's what people think about it. But actually, written into it and made worse through regulation, as Roy says, is this bizarre thing called the Public Sector Equality Duty that requires these organisations to do it. And the problem you've got is that the Labour Party view that piece of legislation as one of the sort of holy acts, one of the great pieces of their history of what they've done, and they simply will never, ever, ever in a million years touch it. And until you've done that, you'll have lawyers that will sue hospitals, they'll sue the College of Policing, they'll take everything they can do, enabled by the unions, in order to write this stuff ever further into our law, our culture, our society.
It's totally there. And again, Donald Trump ripping all this stuff up, you'd hope that would mean that people might go, reality check. It's going to be happening across Europe, although Britain has taken it as much as America. I think, in a way, actually, Labour will double down. And even when they talk about dealing with it, will they actually deal with it? Again, those leaflets, and it was always about women. It was what really, really, really bothered me was that, when it was any illness that or a problem or a screening programme that was only for women, because we're the only ones who have that particular body part. Because, again, breaking news today, it turns out men and women are biologically different. I know. Imagine us discovering that in 2025. Labour only just have, some of them. But they never did it with men. There were never any campaigns about, people, check for your prostate. I don't have a prostate, I don't need to check for it. Men, people who get pregnant. No, there are only one kind of people who get pregnant, they're called women. Use the word women. But the fact that the government are going to drop their plans for pretending you're a person of the opposite sex legally on paper, going to make that easy. Not make it easier, that's a good thing, but it is still too easy. There are currently right now men in prisons in England and in Scotland who are male. You never change being male, but who claim legally to be women and are therefore in women's prisons. There's a court case going on right now. It is extraordinary.
There are people in girls' changing rooms today with penises, right?
We used to have a word for those people. What's the word? It wasn't just men, was it?
And we know men are desperate to get into women's spaces and places. We have respected this.
Some men, the vast majority of men, are horrified by it as women are.
Indeed. But look, for the hundreds and hundreds of years, we had this figured out. For thousands of years, we figured it out. How have we got so mad as a society that when a man turns around and tells you that he would like to go into a women's locker room, we, instead of turning around to him and saying, what the hell is wrong with you, we instead say, fill your boots, mate.
And also, if a woman questions it, she's transphobic. Well, good luck doing that in a changing room or a toilet that I'm in. good luck to you, sir. And I will call you sir. Up next, we're going to take a quick break. Do keep your calls coming. I'll get some more of your messages coming in about just the madness of that Albanian criminal and his son and his love of chicken nuggets, but only British ones. I'm assuming the guys in the production office have already finished those cold chicken nuggets. But up next, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump, his steel tariffs, and how he's going on with, sacking a load of federal staff and all of that. Good luck to him, we say. We'll talk to Matthew Bryser, a former White House official, about all that up next. This is Talk.
As opposition leader, he promised this politics of duty, of service, serving the British people, all British people. And for me, he's fallen well short of that. I think that when you have things like Allygate, for example, all these scandals over donors and the money that the party has received and the way that money has been used by the party leader and also the deputy leader, Angela Rayner. I'm not seeing much of a politics of integrity here, unfortunately.
No, I don't think they have any integrity, and the fact that they keep telling us they have makes it even more galling.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. It's 12:50. Sam Armstrong is still here. Sam, just before we get to our next guest, looking at what is going on stateside, we're just talking about, the wokery here. How encouraged or discouraged are you by what is going on with America right now, Donald Trump?
Well, I'm absolutely encouraged by the popularity of Donald Trump's actions and how he's able to deal with many of the issues that we think
are intractable here.
We can't deal with. But you are seeing exactly the same in the US. We're beginning to see court cases being brought, federal judges having temporary injunctions to stop things like dismissing staff. I'm sorry, Donald Trump was elected. He said what he wanted to do with these places. He said he didn't want to have a foreign aid programme running quite the same way it was before. He's got the mandate. If he wants to shut it down, that's his job.
It does seem lawyers on both sides.
The lawyers seem to be getting in the way, stopping you doing anything.
I missed my earning potential here. I could have been a lawyer, but there we are. Let's talk about this with Matthew Bryser. He's a former White House official and joins us. A very, very good afternoon to you, Matthew.
Thanks, Alex. Great to be with you as always.
Great.
Thank you.
I do want to get on to some of the other things that Donald Trump is doing, but obviously we wake up this morning to the breaking news, as we often do now. What has Donald Trump had to say, on the plane on the way to the Super Bowl? But he said he's going to impose a 25% import tax, i.e. a tariff, on all steel and aluminium entering, or aluminum, as inexplicably you Americans insist on calling it. Obviously you can't spell and see that last I, entering the US. Now, the biggest impact of that will actually be on the Canadians, big impact on the Chinese as well, but also it will impact us. I'm not sure what we've done to anger him. 10% of our steel exports go to America. Why has he announced this? What's the purpose of it?
Yeah, it's the old mafia Godfather cliche goes, it's nothing personal, it's business. And so he, when he was running and immediately elected, he was saying that the primary determinant of his foreign policy is going to be whether or not there is a trade surplus or a deficit between the United States and any country, whether they're a NATO member state or our closest, most proximate friends. So what is he doing? Number one, he's thinking like a very straightforward businessman and not a politician. If you're earning more money from me than I'm earning from you, that's a priori bad. But he's also trying to use the tariffs in the cases of Mexico and Canada to generate other policy changes. So to try to stem the flow of the drug fentanyl across U.S. borders and to get control of the U.S. border and reduce the flow of migrants.
Yeah, I mean, well, we shall see. We shall see if it does actually happen. I mean, he often uses these things as a negotiating position, doesn't he?
No, yeah, absolutely. And we saw it in the case of Mexico and Canada. He said, I'm going to slap on these, 25% tariffs on each country. The U.S.'s biggest trading partners, only 10% on Canada, by the way. Yeah. And then he backed off, right? When he talked to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, and Justin Trudeau, the prime minister of Canada, and they both promised to do some things, basically, that they were already going to do. Yeah. Upgrade borders.
Yeah, that was the thing. A lot of that stuff had been agreed even, back in December, even before he was actually a president, wasn't he? I mean, do you think he might start using some of these tactics when he's trying to deal with the Middle East? He's doubled down, talking now about he wants to buy Gaza. I'm not sure who from. And do you think, I mean, when he's talking about the Palestinian people having a homeland somewhere, Saudi Arabia got a load of land. He says they do. Why don't Saudi Arabia give them a bit of their desert? But do you think he's going to try and use some of these tariffs and some of these sort of alternate threats to get countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan to sort of join him on that plan, which everyone seems to have condemned across the board?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. Also, you raise the point, who's he going to buy Gaza from? Because it's not Israel's. Israel never annexed it. So, he hasn't talked about sanctions yet on any of those countries, which is very interesting. Why is that? He's a master of linkage, right? And so, or he thinks he is. So the linkages he's tried with the closest U.S. allies is on trade and tariffs. Yeah. But when it comes to this Middle East conundrum, he seems to be linking, I think, investment by Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE into rebuilding of Gaza rather than threatening them with tariffs. And I think that's clear in the fact that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is going to go to the Middle East this coming week, and he's not going to Egypt, which is a key interlocutor in negotiating the ceasefire in Gaza, but is going to go to UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, the ones with the big purses.
That's very interesting. We'll see what happens. That's going to be fascinating. In terms of what's going on at home, one of the key things Americans were very keen on, and we've seen this pretty much every American election over the years, they pretty much always vote for an isolationist president. They don't want people gallivanting off on foreign wars, getting involved. They may feel strongly about the situation in the Middle East or not. Basically, they want the president to deal with the problems at home. A lot of problems at home. The massive cost, rise in the cost of living, people's standard of living not having risen in 2 decades for the average American in recent years. I know, we say, America's been booming. Not for an awful lot of many tens of millions of Americans. The issue of mass immigration, crime rising, sort of loss of control on the streets, and the mad wokery. Now, and all of that stuff, he had literally an open goal when the Democrats were in power, and I was still amazed that Joe Biden was insane enough to basically double down on all of that stuff in his 4 years in office. How is he doing in terms of actually succeeding? Because he signs an executive order. Over here, we all cheer and go, yeah, God, if only our president, our prime minister would do the same thing here and do that and had that power. But it does appear, as Sam Armstrong's just pointed out, that a lot of times he signs an executive order and then he plans, mass deportations of foreign criminals, federal employees back in the office by last Thursday. or you will consider you to have, resigned or we'll fire you. 2 million employees. That's all being held off, I think, till later today by a judge. Other plans to sort of cut massive amounts of spending on aid programs and the like, that's been stopped by judges. How much power does he actually have to do the stuff he has a very clear mandate from the American people to do?
Well, yeah, and that's what's being fought out right now between the courts and the executive branch. That's the rule of law. That's democracy playing out. He has a mandate, but it's really in the popular vote, it's 1.5% of the electorate, right? Now, he's more popular than he's ever been. He's +5 in his approval rating. He was -4 at his highest point in his previous term. So he's more popular, but he does control both houses of Congress and the presidency, and basically has a lot of his people on the Supreme Court. So he's got a lot of power. But he's taking steps. He's doing the old, I guess it was Mark Zuckerberg, who first said it, or maybe it was Elon Musk, break it first, then worry about, building something new. And so we have, in the U.S. Constitution, the Congress has the power to allocate money. But it's also accepted that the president is in charge of how quickly the money allocated by Congress is spent. President Trump is stretching it a bit and saying, well, not only can we not spend all this money because we just don't know how to do it. He's saying we're going to spend none of it. So it's a constitutional battle that's going on in the course of time.
But if it has to go to the courts, that could take a rather long time.
It could, and that's to Trump's big advantage, because he knows he can just seize the day now. In many cases, just do these things. Okay, if there's a court injunction, then he has to stop. But in other cases, if individuals who are fired and in violation of their civil service union protections want to make a court case and take him to court for their firing, that'll take them years. So that's how it's moving quickly. Cut.
That is very interesting. Because that thing is, I want to I'd like to have a blueprint for how we could do it here. Matthew Bryser, former White House official, thank you very much indeed. Sam Armstrong, are you encouraged by any of that?
Well, I am encouraged by the simple polling reality, which is when you go and deliver all of the things that we at talkTV spend a lot of time talking about each and every day, the public back you overwhelmingly to do it.
Most vast majority of people are quite sensible and just want sensible policies.
But you wouldn't think it, listening to either much of the media, to politicians that come on all day and just say, people like us, Julia, we don't understand. It's just not as simple as we think it is.
Stop being far right. I haven't shouted bigot at you. Bigot. I think it's the law. We have to do that now. Sam Armstrong, it's been fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. So we're going to get a couple of text messages. Again, absolute classic. These are from this Albanian criminal allowed to stay in Britain because his kid wouldn't eat foreign chicken nuggets. Our justice system is useless, says Edna. You can't catch criminals, and the foreign criminals we do catch, we can't even deport. Paul says, very simply, the immigration panel needs sacking. Tom says, it would be funny if it wasn't so ludicrous. The UK must be the laughing stock of the world. Ian Collins, this story is just, it's mind-blowing and shocking, and yet not a surprise.
I'm sorry. Look, I'm going to take you back 10, 11